Welcome, everyone, to Mondays with Michael. So good to be with you. I'm Dr. Michael Gaeta, your host, and so glad you're with us for this weekly show on natural health and health freedom and other topics of interest that relate to human health and the well being of our world. I am delighted to have our remarkable guest with us today. I'm going to read you a little bit about him and encourage you, whatever platform you're viewing us on, to please introduce yourself, let us know who you are, where you're calling from, anything you'd like to share with the group, and any questions you have for myself or our guests today, you can put into our Zoom link or also on our watch page at michaelgaeta.com/watch. So, very honored to introduce today's guest. I'm going to be doing that in just a moment. For those of you who haven't been with us, we have been doing this live show. We're in our 7th year now, and this is an offering of the Gaeta Institute for Holistic Health Education. Our motto here is with the clinic is nature first, drugs last. And welcome to show number 315 for this May 11th, 2026. Happy Mother's Day, which was yesterday, to all the moms out there. Deep appreciation. Hope you had a wonderful and well-deserved awesome day. And I am delighted to introduce to you one of the most remarkable individuals I've ever had the honor of meeting. Like one of my heroes, Ben Franklin, Bill Simpson has, I think, lived several lives already. He's accomplished so much in his time on Earth in so many different areas. And we are going to be talking today about an incredibly important topic that I have just been deeply moved by, and we're going to go into some detail about that. Bill is the expert on this: wild horses as keystone herbivores for mitigating wildfires and toxic wildfire smoke. So, Bill Simpson is a retired merchant marine officer. He's a captain in the U.S. Merchant Marine. He is director of the Wild Horse Fire Brigade. He is an inventor, author, journalist, and also fellow musician and composer, documentary filmmaker, ethologist, and naturalist. I'm going to just read you a little bit about Bill. He is just a remarkable man. He's founder of the Wild Horse Fire Brigade, a nonprofit advocating for the rewilding of wild horses to mitigate wildfires. He lives off grid in the remote mountains near the Oregon-California border, where he studied a herd of 200 free-roaming cultural heritage horses using an observational method inspired by Jane Goodall. His research shows that wild horses reduce wildfire fuel by grazing on dry grass and brush approximately 5.5 tons per horse annually, and naturally reseed native plants through their droppings, unlike cattle that digest seeds. His initiative is 1,000 Horses, aims to relocate 1,000 horses to areas needing fuel reduction and native plant restoration. And he is seeking to reform the very honestly messed up federal management practices of wild horses. So wherever you are, please type in the chat, and let's give William Simpson a warm Mondays with Michael welcome. Bill, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate your being with us today for this show.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, and I really appreciate your time and your audience's time.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is an important subject, and you're kind of like the leader in this area of really saving wild horses. So, if you just, for folks who are less familiar with you and your work, Bill, if you just give us a little bit of your arc, of your story. You've done so many things in your life, it's remarkable. We share a background in part in music and martial arts and composition and all kinds of things. And just tell us a little bit about how you came to be doing the work you're doing and what brought you here.
Well, okay, so I could do the really short version or
Sure.
a
Well,
little
I know we could spend
detailed
the whole
version.
hour on your bio. I mean, it's incredible. But whatever
No,
you
I
want to
don't. I don't
share.
want to. I want to talk about the horses mostly, but
Yes,
just
of
to give
course.
people kind of a background on me. I
Please.
grew up as a country boy, just kind of a hayseed on a ranch, and lots of animals. Love animals. I think you got to love animals to be a rancher, and I'm not talking about
Mhm.
the big commercial boys, but that wear cowboy hats on Wall Street. I'm talking about the guys that, the hardworking small family ranchers that are just
Mm,
eking out a living on the mountains and the lands. And so we were that way. My dad was, and just to understand a little bit about me, my dad was an unusual man. He went into World War II in Europe as 82nd Airborne, and
wow.
just
That's
he
elite.
hadn't even graduated. Yeah, he hadn't even graduated high school, and
Mm,
but he came from a family of 11 kids in Chicago during the Great Depression,
wow.
and they were having trouble feeding the kids. So my grandfather um, went ahead and basically farmed out his two oldest boys to the airborne, U.S. Army Airborne,
Mm,
and so because they would feed them. I mean, that's how bad things were. People
mm,
don't know how bad that Great Depression
wow.
was, but they were
Wow.
literally starving.
Mm,
So they went. My dad was 17. My grandpa lied and said he was 18 to get him in,
mm,
and so they went to Europe. And when he came back after 2 years of combat, he joined LAPD, and then because that's about the only thing he could do, without an
mm,
education.
right.
And but he had kind of a gift, and he was a motorcycle cop in LA.
Right.
And but on the weekends he was racing Harley Davidsons at the Riverside Raceway,
Wow.
and
Wow.
so they were winning all the time. And so a guy walked over to their pit and introduced himself. He was the senior environmental engineer from the Jet Propulsion Lab. He worked at Caltech, but he
Oh,
was a senior guy at JPL. And he
right.
was asking my dad, he says, "What are you guys doing to win?" Because they had everything on their team to win, but they weren't
Right.
winning.
Huh.
And my dad said, "Well, they were built." My dad was designing and building his own racing parts for the engine.
Oh,
And so the
that's
guy
amazing.
hired my dad to come work at Jet Propulsion Lab.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
so my
amazing.
dad became the senior environmental test technician, and his job
Hmm.
was to figure out what would break before the spacecraft went out into space. So
Right.
he worked on the Viking, the Mariner, and the Voyager, and
Wow.
then he went to work for Scientific Data Systems and helped develop the disk file computer, which is the
Huh.
predecessor of the modern hard drive.
Wow.
And so he
Now,
was a
wait,
musician.
he was at JPL. What was his educational background?
He went through 11th grade.
Wow, that's amazing.
He was a
Amazing.
very unusual guy. He was self-taught. He could read and write music. I mean,
Wow.
the bars and the notes, and play guitar and sing. So on the weekends he sang and did music at clubs with his brother Jack. They both could play guitar, and my dad was a really good singer.
Wow.
But I guess that's where I get a little. I can't sing, because I got damaged. I got damage to my lungs from the wildfire smoke.
Mm.
I was on a fire line up
Oh
here. But
boy.
anyway, so
Yes.
I inherited a little bit of his inventive gift, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Well,
And
yeah, you've right.
so on the ranch, growing up with all the animals, and then I was going to go to Vietnam. My draft number was 19, so I was on my way. But
Oh,
my mom wanted me to go to college to be a doctor,
oh,
and so she applied for some grants and things,
right.
scholarships at Oregon State, and I got one. And so I went to Oregon State pre-med science major, studied all the fun things, physics,
Oh, okay.
chemistry, all those fun things. And
Right.
but ended up before I graduated, I was a pilot at that point. I was a private pilot,
Oh,
and
wow. What were you
because I
flying?
spent small Cessnas,
Oh, wow. That's great.
152s, 172s, things like that.
Wow.
Um, and I built up a lot of hours real fast because the small airport in Grants Pass. The guy who ran it he was probably an adventurer. He raced T3 aircraft at Reno Air Races, and he
Huh.
my instructor said I was a really good natural pilot. So Marshall Wells was his name.
Right.
He Marshall, who owned the Cessna dealership and everything, had airplanes in Medford and Grants Pass. Started having me ferry airplanes back and forth because I would do it for free just to build hours
Oh,
and
wow.
toward my getting a commercial license. And so I built up
Right.
hours. And anyway, I ended up being recruited out of before I graduated college. I got recruited to go fly around in different places in the world and in more advanced aircraft, which was really
Huh.
cool. And kind of led me into some other things. I ended up studying gemology and importing gemstones from South America and
Huh.
Asia, and that was fun. And worked for a couple museums, and but ended up doing a lot of sailing. Had enough money to do some things that I really wanted to do, which was
Hmm.
sailing, and did 2 4-year sailing expeditions. The first one with my whole family, my wife and my 2 sons, or my late wife, and then then the second one was just my late wife and I,
Okay.
2008 to 2011,
Right.
and then after that came back and and I mean and we were at sea for not just sailing around some port or yacht club. We were boom gone in the Sea of
Wow.
Cortez for four
Oh,
years, and then we got back. National Geographic was reading my sailing journal and
right.
wanted to do a show with my boat, so we did a show
Oh, wow.
called Fortress at Sea. They thought they thought a sailboat was a really good prep for the end of the world. So they had a show called Doomsday Preppers,
Right.
which was pretty popular, I guess, at the time. And
Yes, for sure.
so they chartered my boat and we did a show together, and that was fun. And because of that, then I got a book contract. Then a publishing company, Ulysses Press, came along and said, "Hey, would you write a book about sailing?" And I
Huh.
said, yeah, I don't mind making extra money. And so they actually paid me some money to write a book,
Oh,
and
wow.
so that was cool. And then finally, last but not least, after all of that, sold the boat, and I wanted more of a wilderness experience, so I bought this remote land up here in the mountains on the Oregon-California border and
Right.
set up a homestead here, and only to realize I moved in with a herd of wild horses.
Oh, so they were there already.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this herd
Okay.
here, interestingly, excuse me,
Yeah.
this herd here was seen in 1579 by Sir Francis Drake. So Queen Elizabeth, um,
Wow.
everybody was conquering the world. The New World was a big deal back in the
Yes.
1500s. And so there was a lot of activity on the East Coast of the United States.
Right.
Columbus discovered America in 1492, as everybody knows.
Yes.
But Queen Elizabeth knew that the Pacific Northwest was pretty much unclaimed at that point, and so she
Oh.
sent Drake, who was a serving British knight, he was a military
Yep.
officer, sailed around Cape Horn, came up the West Coast, and ended up at the Klamath River, which is
Hmm.
across the street, I should say street, the road, um,
Right.
from our ranch. So the river I can see the river right from my cabin here,
Hmm.
and so anyway. They came up to the Klamath River, and in the 1500s, that river was completely full of gold. And
Really?
oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah, this area here is mineralogically very rich,
Huh.
and there's a lot of gold. In fact, probably some of the most. It was even richer than like Sutter Creek and places like that, Sutter's
Huh.
Mill, California, where they were
Yep.
finding phenomenal gold, the big gold rush, right? And
Right. Right.
so these guys, because of the experience the explorers were having on the eastern seaboard with the indigenous people that, especially in Central and South America, they had a lot of gold, a lot of gemstones,
Right.
emeralds. I mean, that's how King Philip of Spain filled his treasury, was the ships would
Oh.
sail to the New World and
Huh.
load up on gold and gems and then head on back. And
Huh.
some of your audience may have heard of a man named Mel Fisher in Florida who was searching for the famous treasure ship, the Atocha.
Right.
Well, he found that, and it had, of course, in today's value, billions of dollars worth of gold, silver, and emeralds. And that was just one of many, many hundreds of
Huh.
ships that, you know. So everybody was thinking indigenous people in the New World had a lot of gold and gems. That was the general consensus.
Hmm.
So, and then, of course, the French were looking for fur. So they were traveling
Okay.
inland to the great rivers of North America, looking for trade routes for fur. And so,
Okay.
but Drake came up the outside of the western United States in 1579. They got to the Klamath River. They saw gold. So they ventured up the both the Klamath River to where I am, and also the Rogue
Right.
River to the Rogue Valley just to the north of me.
Huh.
The Rogue River also has a lot of gold, or did,
Right.
and they ran into the indigenous people with horses. Now,
Hmm.
the thing about that is horses were very difficult to get to the New World when you brought them on a boat. And the
Okay.
Spanish did indeed bring horses. Okay,
Right.
the BLM and some people will try to tell you that it's that American wild horses went extinct during the Ice Age, and that the Spanish reintroduced them again when they arrived here. But that's not
Right.
true.
Hmm.
Both things happened, and we know this because Drake wasn't a tourist or anything. The reason he documented horses was because horses were a very important tool when you arrived in a new world. You couldn't do anything without a horse. You couldn't get
Hmm.
anywhere. You know,
Okay.
there was no roads, there's no buggies, there's no cars. It's hard for people to really get their head around what America was like in the
Right.
1500s.
Yes.
You know, it was rugged, unexplored. You know, there was the only trails you had were game trails.
Hmm.
So, but anyway, so they documented that because horses were considered a valuable commodity, especially
I
when they
would
were
think
already
so.
here. Because
Yes.
when you brought them from Europe to the East Coast, about half the horses would die on the voyage.
Wow.
And the boats back then
Huh.
couldn't carry very many horses. And
Okay.
so there's a scientist, Dr. Yvette Running Horse Collins. She's a Lakota scholar who
Huh.
studied a lot of the archives in Great Britain and Portugal and Spain and France, looking at how they loaded their ships. What the captains and the stewards who were loading ships for transport to the New World, they would
Right.
show a side profile of the boat. So all the
Huh.
deck, you can see the layers of the decks and
Right.
what was going to be in each compartment. And as part of balancing the ship, but also showing where the cargo was.
Huh.
And there's documents and pictures showing the horses below decks. And the way they transported horses was they hung them in slings.
Hmm.
So when you're in a heavy sea, just like the hammocks that the sailors were in, the
Right.
boat moves around the hammock.
Oh.
Okay. It's like a pendulum, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the hammock always is pointing toward the center of the earth, but the boat rotates around the hammock. And when you hang a horse below deck, he's not being slammed around. If a horse was on his feet on the deck
Oh.
in a rolling sea, that horse would be slammed back and forth,
Wow. So
right?
they hang them from
Right,
suspension.
right. Yeah. And so half of them would die from cardiopulmonary compression
Oh.
because Spanish horse, see, and they're not like American wild horses. Spanish
Hmm.
horses were big. They were cavalry horses.
Oh.
We know from equine
Gigantic.
science that you can only put about 20% of a horse's body weight on his back.
Hmm.
So if you've got a conquistador who, with his
Right.
saddle, his supplies, his weapons, his armor, probably
Right.
weighs in, and a man that's a big man, 180, 200-pound man,
Right.
you're talking 350 pounds all in, with all
Oh,
that
wow.
stuff.
Right. 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 Right.
So you need a big horse, right?
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
horses that I live with here, some of them still have that old world native heritage. The genetic line is still available in the phenotypes here, and you
Right.
see it. You see our horses. Some of these horses out here are 700, 800 pounds.
Hmm.
They're little. So you
Hmm.
can only put, if you do the math, 20%, you can put 160 pounds on their back safely. Well, then it could,
Oh.
yeah, what that amounts to is a Native American that's scantily clothed with
Right.
a wooden spear, for buffalo or a bow and arrow.
Interesting. Wow.
So when I moved here, I started seeing these horses and I'm looking at them
Right.
and I started reading. And that's when I ran into research about, Drake coming up the coast and seeing these horses and documenting. And then Dr. Yvette Running Horse put that in her PhD dissertation, the
Hmm.
sighting by Drake of these horses. And interestingly, that's a very important place in history because when you think about that, when Drake saw horses way out here on the West Coast, Oregon,
Right.
California, that was just 88 years after
Hmm.
Columbus first saw America.
So this was
So
so Drake was 1500s?
1579.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So that's 88 years after Columbus, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
so in 88 years, and let's just he didn't bring very many horses. They were
Okay.
talking dozens. And
Oh, okay.
those are domestic horses. Now, domestic horses are habituated to humans. In other words, a domestic horse will follow you around and eat out of your back pocket. I had them on the ranch. They're not going to run
Okay.
off and feralize they're not doing
Right.
that because they know
Right.
that person, that's my person. He's going to feed me. I'm following him around. They're like a
Oh,
dog. Domestic horse
okay.
is a lot like a dog.
Okay.
So, um, so it's really a falsehood that the Spanish brought enough horses to suddenly colonize the whole continent with horses in a matter of,
Hmm.
100 years. In fact,
Is that the
if we,
claim?
yeah,
Wow.
they say that horses came to North America because of the Spaniards, but that's not true. And I'll
Oh,
tell you
okay.
why they use that falsehood in a minute. But
Yep.
the point I want to make is even let's say we gave Christopher Columbus, we went we went back in time and gave him an aircraft carrier in
Right.
1579, and he had
Right.
1,000 horses. He had 1,000 wild horses on the deck of that boat,
Okay.
and he
Yes.
landed them on the East Coast. There is no
Right.
way, logistically, those 1,000 horses could make it across 3,000 miles of rivers,
Hmm.
mountains, canyons, and millions of indigenous people to be seen on the Western United States by Drake in 88 years.
Hmm.
It's absolutely impossible.
Wow.
So what that tells us is that these horses that Drake saw were indeed Ice Age survivors. They were
Wow.
not reintroduced horses. They were Ice Age
Hmm.
survivors. Now, taking it one step further and going back to the what we talked about, size and how much
Yes.
loading you
Yes.
can put on a horse, the
That's right.
French, Dr. Claire Henderson from Laval University got a phone call from I believe it was a museum in Oklahoma that had a leather-bound uh, a journal that was
Right.
written in French.
Huh.
And so they called her because she's bilingual. She's a professor at Laval University in Canada. And they said,
Right.
"Hey, you've got this." And she studies, cultural archaeology and things like that. And they said, "We got this interesting old journal, and
Right.
we'd like to know if what it says. Could you come take a look, or could we do something?" So she went and looked at it. Turned out it was from a French explorer looking for a trapping route for fur. And he
Hmm.
actually, this team of French explorers met with the Sioux Lakota just
Oh.
east of the Rockies, west of the Missouri,
Huh.
and they were had horses, and this is
Oh.
in the like 1520.
Okay.
And so people don't realize the French penetrated deeper into the United States than anybody else
Really?
early on. Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah, because most of the other people were sailing around and focusing on coastal assets. They were
Right.
looking for beaver and fur. So they
Huh.
traveled inland to where those game animals were and looking for big trade routes. And
Okay.
so they documented this. But the interesting thing in that journal is they wrote in there that they saw the Native Americans, east of the Rockies, west of the Missouri, and
Yes.
they had what they called Indian ponies. And
Oh.
they're the ones that started using that term.
Huh.
Indian pony was in
Huh.
the journal. Well, when you think about that for a minute, that's a really big clue because these guys are from France,
Right.
and from where they come from, a horse that little is a pony.
Oh, because the European horse is just much larger.
Of course,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah. Yeah.
European horses. Okay, so we're going to go back in time a little more here.
Yeah.
55 million years ago, all the horses in the world originally evolved in North America. There were
Hmm.
horses nowhere else in the world.
Hmm.
There was 5 or 6 different lines of horses. They were about the size of dogs. Some of
Hmm.
them even had 3 toes. Okay,
Wow.
excuse me. So about 2 million years ago, roughly, the successful line evolved Equus cavalis, the horse we all see today, the modern horse.
Right.
And so a couple million years ago, those guys were the successive line. And then 1 million years ago, when Beringia, the land bridge between Alaska and Siberia,
Hmm.
was available, horses from North America crossed into Eurasia.
Okay.
So that
Huh.
was the first introduction of equines into Eurasia. Prior to 1 million years ago, there were no horses of any kind in Eurasia, none.
Huh.
So, because when you look at the fossil records over there, they don't have the fossil record we have in North America that goes back
Oh.
continuously to 55 million years ago.
Which is where they
Our
originated.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay.
So a million years ago, you could walk from Alaska into Siberia, and if you kept
Right.
walking, you'd eventually get to Africa and Europe.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
so the
Right.
bottom line is that's what the horses did. They crossed over, looking,
Hmm.
there were things were changing. You had a lot of climatic conditions, and animals were being, because of environmental pressures, they were moving, looking for better ecosystems to survive in.
Hmm.
And there was animals coming the other way, and I'll talk about that in a second. But horses
Yep.
a million years ago crossed, and then they went into different ecosystems, and they had a million years in Eurasia to
Hmm.
then evolve into the horses that we see today in those areas. The
Hmm.
zebras in Africa, the Conic horses
Oh.
that we're used to, the up north in northern Europe. The Conic horses have
Yeah.
those heavy, and all these other horses you see, the Polski horses, the bow tie horses,
Yeah.
they all have a million years to evolve into their niche systems and
Hmm.
adapt their morphology and their body traits to that
Okay.
ecosystem.
Okay.
And so, in the meantime, North American wild horses pretty much were already well evolved into the ecosystems here. And
Okay.
and so um, those horses that went into Eurasia about 6,000 years ago, people
Hmm.
started to breed them for characteristics. Because remember, those were little horses. They were these six,
Hmm.
700 pound horses. They
Right.
weren't
Right.
they weren't big agricultural. They weren't Clydesdales. They weren't cavalry. You look at a
Oh.
British knight. What does a British knight weigh with all his armor and saddle? You're talking
Oh.
400 pounds. You know, so
Wow.
for 6,000 years in Europe,
Right.
6,000 years ago, they started breeding horses for characteristics that humans wanted. So cavalry
Oh.
horses,
Right.
they needed horses that would handle a mounted knight in
Hmm.
combat. They needed
Hmm.
Romans needed horses.
Hmm.
Genghis Khan needed horses for cavalry to travel long distances
Wow.
with supplies and weapons. And of
Huh.
course, they were developing horses for agricultural.
Yes.
So to pull a plow, that takes a big horse to pull a plow.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so they did. So they were breeding, 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 and when you do selective breeding, we know from science that
Right.
you lose genetics. You lose,
Oh.
you get what you want. It's a trade-off. You get what you want, but you lose stuff. And of course, because
Hmm.
nobody was doing any genetic studies then, nobody knows what they lost.
Oh. Okay.
That's unknown. You can't
Right.
know what you don't know. So
Yeah.
that stuff was all lost on those horses. The horses that the Spaniards brought
Huh.
had already suffered a genetic decline, if you will, a loss of genetic
Oh.
data. And those
Okay.
horses now, they got what they wanted, but they lost a lot. Now, full stop. The horses that were here, still here, the surviving what they call splinter populations of wild horses that did indeed survive the Ice Age, the
Hmm.
ones that Sir Francis Drake saw here, and the
Hmm.
ones that the French explorers saw the Lakota with,
Right.
um, those horses hadn't been bred. They hadn't been line bred.
Hmm.
So they still had all their genetic vitality. They had the whole
Oh.
host of, of genes, and which make them exceptionally special
Hmm.
because they're well adapted to very difficult situations. They have
Right.
traits that are very desirable in horses. They have, for instance, their hooves, and people
Right.
call them feet. Cowboys and horse people call them horses' feet, but the
Yeah.
hooves is what I'm talking about.
Right.
Their feet are very rock solid. They don't need shoes. They're not fragile. Some of the
Hmm.
decline in domestic horses include skeletal muscular decline from inbreeding, loss of the vitality of their hooves.
Right.
There's a lot of these horses have hoof problems, and
Hmm.
which requires farriers. The
Hmm.
farriers are busy out there shoeing horses and dealing with all kinds of hoof problems that
Okay.
stem from line breeding. And
Hmm.
so, and a lot of horses have genetically based diseases. Now, the audience might be a little bit less informed on what I'm talking about, and maybe if I give a
Fascinating.
metaphor here about German Shepherds, a lot of people know about German Shepherd dogs.
Sure. Sure.
Now,
I had one when I
they
was
were
a kid.
breed, Yeah, so they people have bred for standard on German Shepherds for a very long time.
Right?
So they kept breeding for what they wanted, and they were losing things all the time, and they weren't doing
Hmm.
genetic research. And so eventually they got the horse they, or I'm sorry, the dog they wanted. But
Hmm.
now we see in German Shepherds a genetic defect called hip dysplasia,
Hmm.
and that's a result of inbreeding for a certain look.
Hmm.
And that happened with horses. You
Huh.
also have little dogs that have tracheal problems. I had miniature pinschers that were bred to be tiny, look like a Doberman pinscher, but be tiny.
Right?
They got it, but that little dog has tracheal problems. They have trouble
Oh,
breathing and choking. So anytime we do line breeding, where humans are deciding what breeds and what doesn't breed,
right.
you end up with problems. You're not letting
Oh.
Mother Nature do what she does best.
So that's what happened with my dachshund, my mini dachshund. They bred them to be hunters helpers low to the ground.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so we kind of went down the path there a little bit, but these
Sure.
horses were here for a
Right.
very long time, and so our herd has this provenance that goes back to 1579. And
Wow.
then, of course, we have petroglyphs. You have carvings on rock from the Native Americans here that saw horses, and they didn't have the Native Americans didn't have an alphabet, so they didn't record things in writings like the
Right.
Egyptians and all the early
Oh, okay.
people. So
Yes.
they have song and storytelling,
Hmm.
which is subject to erosion over time, because if you have a great
Right.
storyteller who
Right.
has a lot of knowledge in his head, and
Yes.
maybe he's
Yes.
hunting one day and a lion gets him and kills him, that all that knowledge, the data bank is gone.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
and that happened a lot back then. I mean,
Hmm.
even today, I think like 40, 50 people a year in the United States are killed by mountain lions.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, we're still on the food chain.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So
Right.
anyway, so the neat thing about our herd is we have this amazing deposit of genetic vitality.
Hmm.
And and at the same time, there are still some other areas where there's wild horses, but they're being subjected to the Bureau of Land Management's roundups and sterilization
Yeah.
program.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, this is so sad. I mean, you gave me the details of this, Bill, in an earlier conversation. I'm just stunned that the BLM would just be abusing and eradicating and genociding these wild horses. They're such a treasure.
They are. I mean, okay, was there an eagle and buggy? No, it was horse and buggy that built
Right.
America. They are the most important animal that in the
Right.
North American continent, and
Yes.
we're treating them like garbage.
Mm.
And to just kind of go back to our little picture of
Yeah,
how North
please.
America connected to Eurasia was
Yes.
via the Bering Land Bridge. Okay, deer, elk, and bison came from Asia about
Right?
roughly 200,000 years ago.
Oh,
So they're not as American as a North American wild horse. They've been here 2
wow.
million.
That's
They're
amazing.
newcomers. They're
Wow.
Asian immigrants. They're as are
Wow.
indigenous peoples. The
Wow. Now,
indigenous peoples arrived here somewhere 15 to 40,000 years ago from Eurasia.
okay. So, Bill, is it possible that some of these millions of years old breeds are still here?
Well, that's what we're talking about. Our herd right here, the genetic lines are still here in our horses, because we
Wow.
haven't been breeding. This herd here is just stems back to time immemorial. Now,
Hmm.
there have been horses that have come from cavalry and ranches that get loose
Right?
that do breed have bred, I should say, with our horses in our herd. So we do see externally, when you look at horses, you look at body shape and color conformation,
Right?
in other words, phenotypes, right?
Yes.
So we see these native horses that are really little. Okay,
Right?
they're unusual colors, they're small, they're 6, 7, 800 pounds,
Right?
full grown. But then we also see hybrids. We have hybrids in our herd that are somewhere in between. They might be 8, 900 pounds. But then you look at the horses
Oh,
that the Spaniards brought.
right?
Those horses were 12 or 1400 pounds. And I'm not talking about agricultural horses. I'm talking
Right.
about cavalry horses.
Oh,
So all you have to do is look back at the old images that they painted of some of the Spaniards on their horses. They're big horses.
Huh.
And just like the British knights, you look at Percherons, those
Right.
were bred for knights and European cavalry. The Percheron, some of those horses are 18, 20 hands high. They're giant horses, but they
Huh.
were bred for power for to be a powerful cavalry horse to carry a
Hmm.
knight into battle. And
Wow.
and
Okay.
those are the breeds the Spanish brought. They didn't bring little horses to
Yes.
explore a wild, woolly country where they knew they were going to have to go into battle, right? We,
Right.
so, so our herd stems back genetically to the beginnings of time, basically
Hmm.
to millennia, and so they carry that genetic vitality, and it's not only just me looking at their external characteristics and their
Right.
personalities, but I'm looking at how they survive environmental pressure here, and
Hmm.
what I mean by that is the winters, the lava rocks. They run across the lava rocks here without splitting hooves. They don't
Right.
go lame on the lava rocks running across them.
Oh.
Now, a domestic horse wouldn't last out here very long at all doing those things.
Oh.
They would fall apart.
Wow.
And then you've got predation. Okay, you've got lions. Where I am here in the mountains, we have lions, and I mean mountain lions or cougars. We have
Right.
bears, we have wolves, we have coyotes. They all
Oh.
eat the horses. They're all
Oh.
not called predators.
Right.
And so I see horses that have been attacked with these horrific wounds. Wild
Hmm.
horses with, laid open. I had a little yearling. A lion grabbed him by the rear end and sunk in his claws, but
Oh.
the horse was running, so he drug back and fell off. And one of the claws went in real deep like a knife and
Oh.
laid him open. He had about a 24-inch long laceration on his upper hip,
Wow.
and it was in about an inch deep. And so it
Hmm.
laid open the hide and the fat and the muscle was laid out
Hmm.
on this 24-inch laceration. I mean, you're looking
Wow.
right at the muscle.
Yikes.
And and that would be fatal on a domestic horse. A domestic horse couldn't
Oh.
survive that.
Okay.
That horse healed up on his own.
Huh.
And um, I've seen dozens and dozens, I'm probably 50 different serious injuries that would be fatal in any domestic horse
These are
where these
hardy
horses
horses.
they are. They survive incredible injuries that would
Wow.
kill any other horse. They survive it. They heal up
Wow.
and survive.
Wow.
And see, this is really important, Michael.
Hmm.
And the reason
Yeah.
being is the domestic breeds of horses in America are in
Right.
genetic decline and are
Oh.
suffering in every way.
Oh.
Their health, they get sick easy. The first little disease that comes along, common horse diseases kills lots of horses.
Hmm.
A lot of things are happening that should be big warning. Um, I talk to a lot of breeders. I talk to people in performance horse circles
Right.
and things like that. And I've talked to people that are former racehorse owners and currently have retired racehorses.
Right.
And they all say the same thing. These horses are not as fast as they used to be. They're not as
Oh.
strong as they used to be as
Huh.
the old champions.
Oh.
Um, the performance horses they're falling apart. I
Hmm.
mean, there was a show on TV called Equus. I think it was a PBS special
Right.
talking about the racehorse industry, and there was a pretty prominent veterinarian doctor
Hmm.
talking. She was worked at a lot of the barns in Kentucky with championship horses,
Right.
racehorses. She said that there was one sire that had sired over 100,000 babies, and
Wow.
they had to close the stud book because you end up with it's a monoclone as a horse and such.
Right.
Basically, you end with just a cloned horse almost at some point, because it's
Oh.
the same genetics over and over again. You have no heterozygosity or genetic,
Oh.
you know, you need genetic diversity.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm using terms that may be alien to some of the audience, and I'm sorry for that.
No, it's okay.
So let me give an example that people might understand that's
Yeah,
a little
please.
more close to home. So most everybody remembers the great flu pandemic of 1918.
Yes.
And so, you hear all kinds of numbers, 50 million people dead, maybe more, maybe worldwide it might have been 100 million, because
Right.
the data out of China was very scant. Um,
Sure.
but there were people, that flu, the Spanish flu is deadly. I mean, you'd bleed out your nose and your eyes. It was a deadly flu. And but there were people with no protection
Right.
taking care of people dying, and those
Right.
people taking care of them never got sick. Now, this was a
Oh.
highly contagious, fatal disease
Hmm.
that killed 50 million people. I mean, it was so bad, people don't know this. They were stacking up cadavers on the streets outside
Wow.
communities. They were stacked up
Hmm.
like cordwood, dead people.
Hmm.
I mean, it was horrific. And
Wow.
but there were
Now,
people
I
that,
had read, Bill, that the part of the death toll was secondary pneumonia. Was part of the picture. It wasn't all flu, but because it was World War One time frame, that people were malnourished and more likely to develop secondary infections like pneumonia.
sure. But these are all contagious diseases, right?
Right,
So
right, right, right,
we
right.
can think that, and you've got people that are in the 60s and 70s taking care of dying people. It's the people that
Mm.
stayed home, that survived the war, that didn't have to go to war. They never
Hmm.
got sick. Well, it turns
Oh.
out that they were genetically resistant. They
Hmm.
had genetics because of the diversity in the human population. There was enough people and diversity in the human population that some people didn't get sick. They
Hmm.
just were resistant. It's the same
Hmm.
thing with all these other diseases. There are people that just don't get sick. You can inject them with cancer and they don't
Right.
get it.
Right.
They have the ability to develop proteins to attack the cancer and kill it.
Yes.
There are people that have unique genetics, and
Right.
that's why diversity is critical, because if you lose those unique genetics,
Right.
you species may not survive the next onslaught of
Oh.
an environmental test,
Okay.
whatever that could be. People think we're immune to Mother Nature. That's crazy talk. Mother Nature is selecting against
Right.
us. She has a whole bag of tricks that
Yeah.
include all kinds of bacteria and viruses
Right.
that some of us are susceptible to, and we'll be taking, we will, I'm not mean me or you, but in an audience, but
Sure.
some people will be exposed to some of these things coming up today, tomorrow, or in 10, 20 years from now,
Right.
and they won't be resistant and they will die and they will
Hmm.
no longer be part of the breeding human population,
Hmm.
just like with the horses. So the
Oh.
horses,
Okay.
the American horse, wild horse that survived the Ice Age has that unique diversity that goes back a million years or 2 million years, I should say.
Right.
Whereas the domestic horses that the Spanish brought were inbred for 6,000 years. So they
Oh.
lost all kinds of diversity.
Hmm.
We don't even know what was lost.
Wow.
And now the BLM is rounding up the remaining horses. I mean, they've already rounded up tens of thousands of horses. Right now, arguably, there's 60, 70,000 horses that have been rounded up. When
Hmm.
they round them up, they run them beyond their endurance. It's a horrible thing they do. They use a
Hmm.
helicopter. They chase these horses beyond their normal endurance. A lot of them
Hmm.
die on the run, heart
Wow.
attack,
Because you
cardiopulmonary
said the horse
failure.
can go for a mile or two before needing
At
a
top
rest.
speed, yeah.
At
Yeah, and
top
that's all
speed.
that's an evolutionary distance.
Huh.
A lion and a bear, their natural predators are
Right.
very fast. Bears and lions can go about 45 miles an hour
Wow.
for about 200 yards or so,
Huh.
and then they peter out.
Right, right,
They're-
right.
You know, so, but a horse, they can go about a mile or so. So their
Okay.
their their survival advantage is being able to run at a very
Right.
high speed, 45 miles an hour, for
40.
about a mile.
Oh, so a horse can
Yeah,
go about 45 miles an hour?
at top full out. Yeah,
Full out. Wow.
yep.
Amazing.
And so it matches what their predators see. You got to remember, we're talking evolutionary biology and natural selection here.
Right?
So guess who gets eaten when the lions or the bears or wolves are chasing? The slow horse. And
Oh,
so Mother Nature has been selective breeding for fast horses because
okay.
the slow horses get eaten, so they don't breed. So
Okay.
the horses with the genetics for speed are the horses that are alive today, right? That's
Hmm.
how that works.
Hmm.
So So, and I was arguing with a guy in Scotland that has a former Triple Crown winner, in the races. And
Right?
I noticed he was arguing that the older racehorses are faster than the modern ones. And we talked about the genetics. And I
Huh.
told him, I says, I have wild horses out here that will beat your horse, your winner, on its best day. These horses can beat it
Wow.
because that's how fast
Wow.
they are.
Wow.
And they're right off the start. They have to,
Huh.
because the lion is an ambush predator.
Hmm.
So they sneak up and then they pounce. So that horse has to spring immediately into top speed to
Right?
escape that attack.
Huh.
They can't they can't think about it or get up to speed or any of that. They have to go
Right.
boom, full speed
Right off the line.
and right
Wow.
off the line. So
Wow.
yeah, so these genetics are really important. And
Hmm.
getting back to the Bureau of Land Management or
Yes.
BLM, they've rounded up roughly 70,000 recently in the last, 10, 15 years.
Okay.
And they're when they round them up, they chase them with helicopters. A lot of them die during the roundup. They don't talk
Hmm.
about it.
Hmm.
Little baby horses, they can't run very far. Their little hooves are real soft when they come
Oh,
out of the womb. So
wow.
they wear their little hooves off real fast. They go lame and
Oh,
fall down and die. And a lot of the mares that are pregnant will abort on the run.
wow.
Um, I mean, it's a brutality.
Terrible.
There's no humanity involved in this. I mean,
No.
these people are brutal. And,
Wow.
I consider some of these people subhuman.
Yeah, for
To do
sure.
to any sentient being shows a lack of compassion and understanding.
Of course.
And so when they finally get them, the survivors of the chase into these
Right?
pens,
Right?
they brand them and then they separate the families, the moms, the dads, the babies are all screaming for each other because they have very, very intricate family structures.
Hmm.
And they really love each other. They care for each other, more so I think than a lot of humans.
Hmm.
And and then they ship them off after they do all and the first and they sterilize them. Of course, they gild the stallion. So and they don't do any genetic testing before they do all the sterilization. So they gild the stallions. They don't know what was lost there. They sterilize the mare with this chemical called gonacon.
Hmm.
One just wipes out the ovaries and this stuff both PZP for horses and Gonacon
Right?
have this adjuvant that
Hmm.
in the vaccine they use, and they call it a vaccine. It's really not a vaccine. It's just chemical sterilization.
Hmm.
They call it a vaccine because that's a term that people will accept in the human circles. A
Right?
vaccine. Oh, that's normal. Well,
Right?
this isn't a normal thing they're doing. It's a chemical sterilization process.
Hmm.
And and the chemical they use has an oil carrier and that is a cell wall solvent. So just the
Hmm.
oil by itself, if you just injected the oil, it causes a breakdown of cell walls and necrosis and granulomas and all kinds of nasty things happen at that
Hmm.
injection site just from the oil that's in
Hmm.
the carrier they use. And then they use a tuberculin toxin to help target the vaccine to the ovaries. But that
Hmm.
tuberculin toxin that they use in the equine PZP and in Gonacon
Right?
also causes all kinds of autoimmune responses and
Oh,
inflammatory diseases.
wow.
So they inject them with that, and then they ship them off into government holding, where they feed them the cheapest hay money can buy, and
Hmm.
then they contractors, apply to the Bureau of Land Management to hold horses in failed cattle ranches, where
Hmm.
the cattle graze they graze it to the ground using livestock,
Hmm.
and they don't have any grass anymore. But they have fenced land. Basically, it's a open air prison, and
Hmm.
they apply to the BLM to hold horses off range. So the BLM
Wow.
pays them with our tax dollars $1,400 a year for every horse they have on
Wow.
that holding area. So you got failed ranchers making a lot of money holding sterilized horses off range. So there's
Bill,
roughly
wow.
good.
Why is the government so horrible and, just inhuman and inhumane to the horses? Like why are they doing that? Why are they treating the horses so badly?
Well, it's the same way we go to war and massacre thousands of people, millions of people. Money. It's all about the money. See, the
Oh,
horses, America's wild horses in 1971, President Richard Nixon protected them because he realized they were a very special animal in North America.
Yes.
You know, we built America off their backs.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
we owed them a debt of gratitude,
For sure.
and there would be no America without a horse. It just wouldn't have
Right.
happened.
For sure.
Period. There would be no America. I mean, in fact,
Right.
there may be, going back further, civilization may not have survived without the
Wow.
horse,
Wow.
going back to, thousands of years ago.
Yes.
So, um, but yeah, so the BLM protected them, or I'm sorry, the President Nixon protected them, and the BLM was
Yep.
in charge of managing them. The Bureau of Land Management was in charge of
Okay.
managing the horses on
Right.
53 million acres
Oh.
in America that the 71 Wild Free Roaming Borough Protection Act set aside for
Hmm.
horses. So Nixon said, okay, we're going to give them 53 million acres for the
Wow.
horses. They
Right.
called them herd management areas,
Okay.
and where the horses get to be wild and free as a symbol of America's freedom.
Wow.
And it was very, is a very noble act. I mean, and it needs to be adhered to.
Celebrated. Yep.
But
Yep.
what's happened since 1971 in
Right.
America is our population has gone up 100 million people.
Oh. Okay.
And so now the demand on public land has gone up exponentially
Okay.
for the products and services that come from public lands. And
Oh.
so you've got horses that are arguably they are a native species. The BLM will
Right.
never that you won't hear those words coming out of their mouths
Huh.
because it's inconsistent with their agenda, which is
Hmm.
to eliminate them. And the reason why is
Yep.
because we suddenly find today, what is it, over 50 years since the 1971 Act to protect the American wild horse,
Right.
that the lands that the Nixon gave to them for their habitats
Right.
um, are areas that are rich in minerals, gas, oil, and also livestock
Oh.
production
Huh.
areas. And so the demand on those lands has gone up so high that
Right.
a lot of people in government are willing to look the other way as that we have a genocide of sorts of the wild horses going on.
Oh.
They,
Wow.
they, in other words, they're in the way now on public land.
Because of the demand for resources
Right,
and land for cattle
right. And mining. You got to
and
remember
mining.
where gas, minerals, and oil now are a big deal. I mean, you look at lithium.
Right.
Lithium batteries are a big deal. Well,
Yes.
you got one of the biggest problems out there is in Nevada right now. You've got probably 70% of all America's wild horses that are protected are
Right.
actually in Nevada.
Oh.
And the largest lithium deposits in America are also in Nevada.
Oh.
And on top of that, you have cattle ranching in Nevada. So
Oh.
you've got it's a triple threat because now there's also solar going on in Nevada.
Oh man.
People want solar, they want to have big solar farms.
Right.
So, um,
Wow.
so anyway, the pressure on the population that was set aside, protected by President Nixon now has gotten so bad that
Mm.
they're now rounding them up and en masse. They're sterilizing them. They're sending them off to God knows who knows where.
Mm.
Some of them are allegedly in government holding off range, but a lot of them are turning up at the Mexican and Canadian borders in slaughter auctions now.
Oh.
And we know this because they have the
Oh no.
BLM brand on their neck.
Oh
So these
no.
are see a horse with the BLM brand on his neck. It's a funny looking thing, looks like a hieroglyph.
Right.
Um, that was a horse that was now the BLM doesn't want to brand them anymore. They're talking about not branding them because they're getting busted because all these
Oh.
branded BLM branded horses are now at the auctions going to slaughter. So that now they're
Oh
actually talking about
wow.
not even branding them anymore so they don't get caught. I
Oh
mean, it's like
no.
a criminal organization now. The Bureau of
Wow.
Land
It's
Management is
criminal.
like, it is. It's really, and not only that, it's an insult to the heritage of America.
Of
It's
course.
an insult to our American heritage. We are, you, me, everybody listening to this show right now, if you
Yep.
just go back in our families,
Right.
100, 150 years, we were all horse people, all of
Hmm.
us.
Mm.
Horses were part of our daily lives then.
Yes.
It wasn't until the internal combustion engine was perfected with Henry Ford that we
Right.
started having motorized transportation for
Right.
all kinds of things. But prior to that, we all used horses every day in our lives. You
Mm.
know, they were our best friends. We
Yes.
were relying upon them for everything we did. And now
Absolutely.
this is how we pay them back by
Mm.
massacring them and allowing an agency, a rogue agency. The Bureau of Land Management is a rogue agency now.
Mm.
They are under control.
Mm.
And, they need to be, I mean, government needs to reel them back in. And, right now, it's ridiculous. You look at the numbers and you don't even know if the numbers they provide you are
Right.
true because
Right.
they've lied on so many things. They in their handbook, they
Right.
have a handbook, Wild Horse and Burro Management.
Right.
Okay, they actually have a book about managing horses, and in their own handbook, they
Right.
talk about horses being not native and all these other things that just aren't true.
Mm.
Uh, they say that I think it's in the executive summary on that handbook on page 1.
Right.
It says, and I'm going to quote a little bit loosely here, but it does say, um, I might be right on here. It says that wild horses and burros have no natural predators. Now that's
Really?
manifestly false. Yeah, that's
Oh,
manifestly false.
right.
Every apex predator in North America for
Right.
millions of years, 2 million years, in fact,
Right.
have been eating horses in North America.
Right. That makes sense. How could they say that
Okay.
that's not true? Is that to justify what they're doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
They want to paint them as an invasive species
Wow.
because it's easier to massacre them,
Mm.
right? They demonize them and then they kill them.
Wow. How is that
They dem
55 million acres doing, Bill?
It's not doing very well at all. They've actually given most of it back for livestock grazing now. We're down
Oh,
to 20 we're down to 28 million acres for the horses allegedly, and on that 28 million acres, the horses have about 7 or 8% of the grazing rights.
oh,
So in
wow.
reality, what's
Wow.
7 or 8% of 30 million? They maybe have 3 or 4 million acres really that they get to use.
Mm.
And these are treasured. I mean, these are the America. We built America off their backs.
Right.
There would be
And
no America if it wasn't for the wild horse. I
total.
mean,
And how
it's
many are
that,
left, Bill?
well, free roaming. Okay, there's about 70,000 in government prisons. Basically, they're
Oh,
off-range prisons.
wow.
And you and me and everybody on the show and every other American taxpayer, we're paying $150 million a year to feed them the cheapest hay money can buy. They
Mm.
don't have the amazing grazing that they had in the wilderness because a
Oh,
wild horse is like a botanist. They know what
right.
every plant and herb does, and they use them accordingly. When they're
Mm.
sick, they know what things to eat. When they
Right.
have a problem, they eat this, that, the other thing. They're super
I think
intelligent animals.
you called that you described them to me as nature's farmer or something like that.
Well, yeah, that's we can talk about that in just one second, but I'm going to
Yeah.
finish answering your question.
Yeah,
So we've
please.
got roughly 70,000 allegedly that are still in holding, but so many are turning up at the slaughter auctions at the borders
Oh,
and ending up in pet food cans now. We really
wow.
don't know how many may still be out there because they don't do an audit on
Mm.
off-range holding of American wild horses. They do not provide audited data.
Mm.
So they keep charging American taxpayers about 150 million a year for this off-range holding program, but
Wow.
we don't even know if those horses are out there anymore.
Oh.
We don't know if they're in these prisons. We don't know if they're there.
Hmm.
And we do know from the USDA reports that a lot of branded American wild horses are going into Mexico and Canada for pet food. So
Wow. That's
where are they
terrible.
coming? And okay, so that's the prison system that 150 million a year in tax dollars are being squandered by this
Wow.
crooked operation with the Bureau of Land Management. Now, full
Wow.
stop, they say there's somewhere between 70, 80,000 wild horses left free roaming, but I
Okay.
don't believe their numbers because they're
Oh.
systematic liars. They,
Oh,
they
okay.
lie in writing. They've
Mm.
lied to Congress in that handbook of wild horse and burro management. They say they have no
Right?
natural predators. That is a paramount lie.
Yeah.
Right off the top, that is a complete fabrication of it's just there's nothing true about that.
Right.
Every apex predator in North America eats horses and has been for 2 million years. That's just a
Wow.
fact.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so they're liars. They're,
Yep.
they're flat out lying to the American people to
Right.
justify the extermination that they have going on of these animals. So they're
Wow.
massacring these horses. They claim there's 80,000 left or 70,000 left free roaming, but
Right.
that I doubt that claim very seriously because
Right.
number one, we know that they're out there shooting them. They have high-powered gas-operated rifles that shoot a syringe
Oh
that's
no.
got gonacon in it. Gonacon is a sterilant. So they're out there
Hmm.
shooting mares with gonacon that destroys their ovaries. They can't conceive anymore. They're
Right.
doing that. They have USDA hunters, the United States Department of Agricultural hunters, out
Right.
there who also shoot predators to make the livestock industry more profitable. They also shoot apex predators. Somewhere like
Hmm.
2 million apex predators are killed every year by USDA hunters
Oh.
to have eliminate all predators for livestock production.
Hmm.
But they also, when they're not doing that, they're shooting the horses with gonacon and sterilizing them, the ones that are still out there that haven't been rounded up yet.
Right.
And then and then you have certain groups of horses here and there that maybe are still genetically intact,
Right.
but are in such small herd sizes that they're in genetic decline.
Hmm.
So what do I mean by that? Well, according to the Bureau of Land Management, even if you use their numbers, that there's, 60, 70,000 wild horses still out there on the range, those
Right.
60, 70,000 wild horses spread out over millions of acres. So they're in,
Okay.
in herd sizes. Most of the herds are at 100 or under 100 horses. I think there's like about 100 herds out there. There's 179 herds left. There
Hmm.
were originally 379 herds
Wow.
when Nixon passed the 1971 Act to
Wow.
protect horses. It was 379 herds,
Hmm.
herd areas, I should say, with herds in them. Okay, well, they've zeroed out 100 of those
Oh.
that we know of. Now,
Wow.
we're dependent upon them for the data too, so we're at a real big disadvantage
Oh.
because we already know they're not truthful. They're not
Right.
truthful with the American people or Congress.
Oh.
So
Okay.
everything they tell you, you have to automatically assume it's not true.
Right.
I mean, basically, we have to use the rules like they have in France. You're guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
It's not like in America where you're innocent until proven guilty, right? The
Right.
Bureau of Land Management is guilty until proven innocent, as far as I'm
Oh.
concerned,
Right. 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 That
because
makes sense.
they've been caught lying to the American public in writing.
Hmm.
So they're guilty until proven innocent. Um,
Right. Right.
the Bureau of Land Management is because
Yes.
anyway,
Yes.
so wiped out a bunch of HMAs, herd management areas, no horses there
Wow.
anymore.
Wow.
And they say, well, we had to get rid of the horses because it was overgrazed. Well,
Hmm.
interestingly, where they wiped out the horses that was allegedly overgrazed, now
Right.
there's thousands of cattle and sheep out there. Hold it. Why did you put
Oh.
thousands of cattle and sheep on a
Wow.
landscape you think is
Oh
already
no.
overgrazed?
Oh
You
no.
know, it's no, that's not right. That's not true. So, and
So
then we've got
Bill,
the remaining.
so
Go
you've
ahead.
got the few million acres that's public land. Are there other what about non-public land? They're just are there wild horses outside of what they're supposedly tracking?
Oh, okay. My mistake here. I didn't line it out adequately here. So the Bureau of Land Management
Right?
manages roughly um, it's 254 million acres of public
Wow.
land.
Wow.
254 roughly in that realm. And the U.S. Forest Service also has some horses, and they
Right?
have roughly 195 million acres they manage. So those are
Hmm.
public land.
Okay.
So 254 million acres, 195 million acres combined. That's a lot of public land. And
Wow.
then there's 354 million acres of privately owned forest land in America.
Okay.
So there's a lot of land out there.
Wow.
The horses are squeezed down now. The wild horses that are supposed to be protected have been squeezed down to roughly 28 million acres that
Right?
are still active herd management areas for
Yes.
horses, but they're commingled with livestock on
Okay.
those 28 million acres. They've introduced livestock there. And on
Okay.
those lands, um, on those lands, the horses have, because there's so few horses, they only are getting about 7, 8% of the grazing rights.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a lot of land out there. But the problem is on the land that the Bureau of Land Management is managing,
Right.
those 245 million acres,
Right.
there's a lot of minerals, gas, and oil, and there's a lot of
Oh.
livestock money. See, they lease that land out for gas,
Oh.
mineral, oil exploration and retract and extraction,
So the horses
and then
can't be
you've
there.
got yeah, and then you've got livestock grazing rights.
Right.
People, the big corporate ranchers are buying grazing rights,
Oh.
grazing permits, and so they don't want the horses there, and they don't want predators there. So what are they
Hmm.
doing? Because both those things interfere with profitability and livestock
Right.
production.
Right. Right.
So you got to get, so if I'm the Bureau of Land Management and I'm looking at the lands I'm managing
Right.
and the corporate America that's making money on gas, minerals, oils, and livestock production, call Bill up, who's running the Department of Interior. Of
Right.
course, it's actually Doug Burgum, who's running the Department of Interior, who calls
Okay.
down the orders to the head of the Bureau of Land Management. And they
Oh.
say, you know what? We need more oil, we need more gas, we need more lithium, we need more cobalt,
Oh.
and we need more meat. So you're going to get rid of any impediments to monetizing these public lands,
Oh.
Bill.
Wow.
Let's say it's Bill and Mike that are running the Bureau of Land Management. They're
Right.
going to call us up and they're going to go, Mike and Bill, you need to increase the monetization of these public lands
Oh.
because American consumers need more cell phones with lithium batteries, and they need more lithium powered cars, and we
Wow.
need to mine all the lithium in Nevada because there's a lot of lithium there, and we need this, that, the other thing. So,
Mm.
yeah, we need more meat because we got
Mm.
100 million Americans to feed since that 71 act. So the
Right.
horses are in the way. Get rid of them horses, Bill and Mike. So then you
Oh.
and I go in the room and we go, okay, what are we going to do here?
Right.
And so the Bureau of Land Management, they come up with reasons to get rid of the horses. So what
Now. Right.
they claim there's no natural predators, so
Right.
they overpopulate. Okay, well, let's
Mm.
look at that for a second. No natural predators, so they overpopulate. Why is that? Well, could it be that the USD hunters that kills 3, 4 million predators every year to make livestock production more profitable,
Mm.
also removing the same predator that controls wild horse populations naturally?
Oh. Mm.
Of course they are. They're
Wow.
wiping out the predators that are essential for the horse management and natural selection. Actually, they're doing a huge disservice to the wild horses because not only do the populations go unchecked because they killed all
Right.
their natural predators, but without natural selection, you don't have the maintenance of the vitality of the
Oh, the
genetics of those.
resilience is the quality is
Yeah,
going down.
because the predators you can uniquely sense a horse that is not up to standard genetically. Any horse with
Oh,
a genetic defect is immediately taken out of the population and doesn't breed.
really?
Of
Wow.
course, yeah. We talked
Wow.
about that a few minutes ago. What happens
Wow.
to a herd of horses where the slow horses are in the back?
Right, right,
They
right,
get
right.
caught and they
Uh,
don't breed anymore.
wow.
What does that do? That enhances the genetic vitality. The fastest horses live. The horses with the
Huh.
best survival advantages live all the time.
Wow. Wow.
When you interfere with Mother Nature, you screw
Yeah.
the whole thing up.
Right.
And so the USDA hunters are out there killing everything. And so the BLM says, oh, they have no natural predators. Well, of course they don't, because you killed them all.
Oh
It's
man.
their
So,
fault. It's not the horse's fault.
right,
It's their
right,
fault. So that gives them one reason to wipe them out. And
right.
then the other reason is they say, oh, the land's overgrazed.
Hmm.
Well, it's because they introduced a whole bunch of livestock, cows and sheep onto the land that was set aside for the horses by Nixon.
Hmm.
So now, because of their lousy management practices,
Right.
they've introduced too many grazers on the landscape. That's
Oh,
not the horse's fault. That's the
right.
Bureau of Land Management's fault for improper management of the grazing. But they're
Oh,
greedy.
okay.
They want more money.
Huh.
So they got to get rid of the horses so they can increase the grazing and increase the use of the land for mineral and oil and gas oil extraction. The other
Right.
big problem that the Bureau of Land Management has right now, they know darn well that they're an endangered native species. They've
Right.
been here forever. we talked a few minutes ago about how bison, deer, and elk came across Beringia 200,000 years ago from
Yeah.
Asia. They're
Right.
not old American evolutionary animals here. They didn't
Right.
evolve on this continent. They
Right.
evolved in Eurasia.
Right.
Horses have been here 2 million years. They've been here
Oh,
10 times longer. So
so
now you got the BLM coming along and saying the bison is the national mammal. I say that's a lot of baloney. That is a
wow.
baloney sandwich. The
Wow.
national mammal is the
Is a
American
wild
wild
horse.
horse. They've been here 2 million years longer than any other large herbivore,
Right.
and we built America off their backs. I mean,
Yep.
there is no animal as American as that.
Right. Now, Bill, all of these competing interests is one of the things I'm hearing is there's this amount of land, and a lot of people need land. You know, the miners and the cattle ranchers and all the folks. Is there enough land to go around? In other words, if everybody got all the land they needed, would there be enough land for the horses?
Oh, absolutely, there would be. The problem we have, okay, so just to answer your question short,
Yeah.
there's tens of millions of acres in the far west of the United States that's
Right.
extreme wilderness. A lot of
Oh,
it is designated wilderness, so it's protected under the Wilderness Protection Act. There's
right.
about 115 million acres of wilderness land where you can't do any of that kind of stuff. You can't
Okay.
do mining, you can't do gas, mineral oil, or logging. It's protected wilderness, 115 million acres.
Wow.
That's a lot.
So the
That's
horses
double what
could be there.
that's that's double what Nixon assigned in 71 for the
Wow.
horses.
Right.
So, and today the horses are so few compared to what they used to be. You know, if you go back in time before pre-Columbian,
Right.
you know, when the indigenous were just here, there was 20
Right.
million horses and 50 million bison. See, people don't
Wow.
understand. We had 50 million bison before Columbus showed up, and
Wow.
20 million horses, 20 million horses.
20 million
We took
horses.
that, yeah, we took the bison down to 500, from
Oh,
50 million to 500. That's how good we are at killing stuff.
wow.
We're good at killing stuff. And we
Right.
took the horse population down as well. In the early 1900s, there was still 2 to 3 million horses left in America.
Hmm.
So there were wild horses, 2 to 3 million left.
And today
And
it's,
well, today, free
we don't
roaming,
know.
and it's very difficult because the BLM lies a lot. Okay,
Right.
so we can't really rely on their data. We horse advocates that are paying attention think there might be as many as 40,000 left, but we don't know how many of those are already sterilized.
We
So
have
if you're not,
40,000
yeah, that's about
out
it.
of 20 million.
Yep.
Hmm.
That's not a shocker because we went from 50 million bison to 500
Right.
bison.
500. Now, how about today with the bison?
Well, they're already like a monoclonic. I mean, when you lose 50 million animals down to 500,
Hmm.
the genetic diversity is gone.
Right. Hmm.
Okay, I mean they're monoclones. You've got that's the genetics you got. Those
Hmm.
500 animals, whatever's in that genetic pool, that's all that's
That's it.
left.
Wow.
So they're vulnerable. The next big disease that comes along could just wipe out the American bison. We have the same problem with the American bald eagle and the condor.
Oh,
We didn't start protecting them until they were down to dozens. They got wiped out. You lost all the genetic diversity. So
hmm.
they saved the ones they saved, but what do you got? Well, you just have that gene pool. That's it.
And
All the
that's it.
outliers are gone.
Hmm. Wow.
So the first big bird disease that comes along could wipe out the remaining eagles and condors. We may never see them again. They'll go extinct. That
Wow.
day is coming. That day is
Hmm.
coming. You can bet on it.
Hmm.
When you reduce the see, Mother Nature loves genetic diversity. She's
Yes.
all about it because she knows she's going to keep testing that. There's things going to happen, climate changes, diseases, all kinds of environmental tests, and
Hmm.
predation.
Hmm.
So there's a whole bag of tricks she has to select for genetic vigor. She's always trying to
Right.
make a species stronger.
Oh, okay.
So, but we have plenty of land. Okay, like I said, we got 150 million acres of designated wilderness,
Right.
and
Right.
then we have 354 million acres of protected timber, which is privately owned.
Right.
You know,
Oh,
so we have
okay.
all this privately owned forest that the
Right.
government is not accessing. Um, but and then we have, like I said, 245 million acres of BLM managed land.
Yep.
They're gonna monetize the heck out of that. We know that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Corporate America has given the marching orders,
Right.
and then the U.S. Forest Service has 195 million acres, and they don't want their horses on that land either because the U.S. Forest Service has decided that selling grazing permits on their land is profitable. So
Hmm.
that they're doing it too now. It's become very
Right.
profitable grazing permits.
So, so I want to bridge this a bit, Bill, into something I know you, and one of the amazing things about you is you've taken personal tragedy and turned it into, or not turned it into, but you've carried forward into doing something that helps humanity. And I want to talk a little bit about this wildfire thing. And I know this has been a great personal cost to you and your family. Um, and the horses have a role to play in that. So I want to make sure we get to that part because it's so related to this subject of the wild horses.
Right. Right. So the American wild horse is a unique herbivore. And herbivores are all the things that eat plants and grasses, right?
Hmm.
Including herbaceous insects. They're
Right.
herbivores too. Crickets, bugs,
Huh.
beetles, all those things. They're herbivores. They eat
Right.
plants. So the kingdom of herbivores is pretty broad. There's a lot of
Yes.
critters in that kingdom. Horses, deer, elk, cows, sheep, goats, all them things are herbivores that we all know
Okay.
about. Now,
Right.
in the realm of herbivores, there's a very special delineation. You have ruminids,
Right.
which basically chew a cud and have a
Right.
multi-chambered stomach, and then you have non-ruminants. There's only one non-ruminant, and that's the horse.
Oh.
Now, why is that important? Well, okay, so when you're eating, if you're a critter eating plants,
Right.
and grasses, if they have seeds for the
Right.
next generation, right? You need seeds, or there's no next. Your crop fails. The cover crop, whether it's a native or even a planted cover crop,
Hmm.
if you don't reseed the ground, you end up with just dirt. You need
Hmm.
reseeding.
Right.
So the thing about ruminids is when they eat seeded grasses and plants, that goes down in the first chamber and then they ruminate. They go sit down somewhere and they burp up that cud, what the things
Right.
they just ate, and they remasticate it. So
Right.
that crushes the seeds.
Hmm.
So the ruminant digestive system is very effective and it's very
Hmm.
efficient. So very few seeds can survive the digestive tract of a ruminant.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when they eat seeded grasses and plants, their
Right.
droppings do not contain many seeds that can grow.
Oh,
Now,
right. Okay.
and so we're talking about ruminants, which are cows, sheep, goats, elk, deer, caribou, all those kind of critters. They're
Right.
all ruminants. They all chew cuds,
Right.
and they don't reseed.
Huh.
Not really effectively. The few
Right.
seeds
Right.
survive, not many. Now,
Right.
a horse has a single stomach. They're post-gastric digesters like us. And
Hmm.
so basically what they do is they'll eat the grass and it
Right.
moves through very quickly, and they'll eat plants even with seeds, and it moves through so quickly that roughly 90% of the seeds survive that process and grow in their dung.
Wow.
So they're farmers. They run around
Right.
and poop out the seeds, and the interesting thing about horse dung, it's a microcosm of the ecosystem.
Oh.
It has all the semi-digested plant materials,
Hmm.
which are like fertilizer. It
Right.
has the natural biome,
Right.
all of the ecology that was in the soil is in there. All the mycelium survives.
Huh.
The mycelium for mushrooms survives. Fungal
Huh.
mycelium survives. Everything is in there, the fertilizer, and then the seeds are in there, and then they're protected by the plant material. So when horse droppings are on the ground,
Right.
they're like a little potted plant.
Hmm.
They're already in the compost, or sorry,
Hmm.
in the humus.
Hmm.
So basically, their survival rate, the seeds and horse dung survival rate, is much higher than windblown seeds or bird distributed seeds
Interesting.
or any of these other seeds that just lay on the surface and get
Hmm.
hammered by ultraviolet radiation or get, re-eaten by another critter like a
Right.
bug or
Right.
whatever. But seeds in horse droppings have a very high survival rate, and
Hmm.
indeed they grow very well. In fact, there's been a lot of university studies. They're
Right.
called the germinability of horse dung.
Hmm.
And for instance, Oregon State did a study on the germinability of horse dung, and it turns
Okay.
out that depending on the seed, it's different for each kind of seed, but roughly 90% of the seeds they eat come out and grow in their poop.
Oh,
So that
wow.
is a really
That's
big
amazing.
deal because
That's amazing.
they move because the predators are always behind them. A prey and predator relationship, the predator is
Right.
always close to its prey because it needs to eat all the time, right?
Oh, right, right, right.
So they're always moving. Horses are constantly moving and pooping.
Hmm.
So they're constantly eating seed during the
Right.
spring. They eat seeded plants and grasses, so they're moving
Right.
and they distribute those seeds everywhere. So they're
Hmm.
farmers. And we know that they plant way more crop than they're going to need in the following year. So they actually benefit all
Oh.
the other critters on the
Hmm.
landscape, right down to the bees and the butterflies that need
Wow.
flowering plants.
Wow.
Everybody wins when the horses are out there.
Huh.
You know, we know for a fact that when you just have herbivores on the landscape, it
Right.
will, I'm sorry, ruminids on the
Right.
landscape, just ruminids, cows, sheep, and goats. We know if they're just out there, it's an
Right.
ecological disaster. And that
Oh.
in the Great Depression, when livestock were grazing in the Midwest, that's what created the Dust Bowls.
Hmm.
What happened is the seed
Wow.
bank finally was exhausted. There's a thing in soil science when you talk about
Right.
the seed bank.
Right.
When seed, Mother Nature is really smart. When plants and grasses drop seed, they don't all germinate the following year. Some
Hmm.
germinate in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years.
Oh.
So there's a lot of seeds will wait a long time. And the reason being is Mother Nature doesn't put all her eggs in one basket. She's not like us. She's not stupid.
Right.
She has millions of years of evolutionary knowledge that we don't have.
Right.
So she doesn't
Right.
have all of her seeds germinate the following year. So the plants and
Yes.
grasses drop seed. A lot of it lays there on the ground for many years before it'll germinate.
Huh.
Now, if you have a ruminant that digests seeds out there eating it all,
Right.
okay, the first year there's still seeds in the ground. That's called the seed bank. The seeds that don't
Right.
germinate but are viable, that's the seed bank. And so
Hmm.
maybe so the 2 or 3 years there's still seeds that are germinating and the cows and the sheep are still eating them. But eventually you run out because the cows and the sheep aren't reseeding effectively. Eventually the seed bank becomes exhausted and there's nothing left growing. And that's how the
Huh.
Dust Bowls happened in the Midwest.
Oh.
So, yeah, the seed bank became exhausted from ruminant
Wow.
grazing.
Wow.
And
So wait,
and
but there
the
were a lot
livestock,
more horses then. Couldn't the horses help
not
prevent that?
really, not
Oh, okay.
really.
Okay.
No, no. In the early 1900s, the Great Depression was in the 1930s.
Right, 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 right.
In the early 1900s, we were already down to 2 million horses. And the dog
Oh,
food companies, you
wow.
had the guys, there was people out there called Mustangers. They actually
Right.
made a movie with Clark Gable about the Mustangers. They
Huh.
were running around catching horses and selling them to the dog food companies.
Oh,
So by the time the
wow.
1930s came around, there was not many horses left. At that
Mm.
point, we were under 50,000 horses.
Oof. Wow.
So, yeah, and it was no, it was, but there were millions of cows and sheep out there
Oh,
eating everything down. And the thing
okay.
is the Bureau of Land Management doesn't want the public to know any history.
Mm.
They don't want anybody to know what a ruminant is. They don't want to they don't want you to know about ruminant grazing. They don't even want you to know,
Wow.
actually have a handbook of
Right,
it's called the Wild Horse and Burro Management Handbook by the
right,
BLM. You
right.
can find it online. They don't even
Hmm.
want you to know they have a handbook on how to do it right, that which they do not follow. All of us taxpayers paid
Wow.
millions of dollars to write
Mm.
a book with leading science to figure out how to do it right, to how to
Mm.
manage these horses, and they don't even follow that book.
Wow. Wow. What's the book called?
Yep. It's called the Handbook of Wild Horse and Burro Management. If you Google
Okay.
BLM BLM Handbook, Wild Horse and Burro Management. It comes right up. You can, it's a
Oh, okay.
PDF.
Okay.
But yeah, right on, I think it's page 28. They talk about the importance of genetic diversity, and they
Wow.
say you need to have a minimum of 150, and they actually hired Gus Cothran at Texas A&M, the
Mm,
geneticist, to write
mm,
this section in the book, right? So they
wow.
gave him money, taxpayer money, to write the
Yep.
section about genetic diversity and breeding and all that. So
Oh,
he wrote the section there, and I think it's on page 28, and
yeah.
it says how important genetic diversity is, and we have to maintain heterozygosity, blah blah blah. And they say to do that, you need minimum, and Gus wrote this. I'm quoting what Gus wrote in the book. You need a
Yeah.
minimum of 150 to 200 horses in a herd. That means intimately together.
Mm,
Okay, 150 to 250 to 200 horses
mm,
to have enough breeding pairs
right.
so that you can have baby horses. And
Right.
then, and if you do that, and if you have genetic testing every year,
Right.
if you maintain a stud book, that you will only have 1% genetic decline every year if you do
Oh,
those things.
so is
So you
that
got to
accurate?
maintain 150
Did they get it right?
no, 1%
Okay.
genetic dilution every
Okay.
year. In 100 years, there's no horses, right?
Mm,
I mean, you go
okay.
if you have 100% genetic diversity, if you
Right.
lose 1% a year, what happens in 100 years?
Oh, okay.
You're down to zero, right?
Mm,
So they're not thinking long term. And Gus was careful. He wanted a CYA, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He said you have to do genetic testing. The BLM doesn't do that. They don't do
Oh.
that before they do sterilization, before they're doing gelding and sterilizing mares
Oh,
when they're round.
wow.
They don't do any of the genetic testing that Gus said is required.
Mm,
Okay, they don't meet that requirement. They don't maintain a stud book. They
mm,
don't meet that requirement. Okay, so they're not doing any of the requirement. In fact, they don't even maintain herds 150 to 200 strong.
wow.
In fact, there's 100 herds that are under 100 horses right now in
Really?
America.
Wow.
So they're bottlenecking. They're genetic bottlenecks. We're already in
Wow.
genetic decline in those areas.
Wow. And what's a good herd size?
Well, it says right in the book, a minimum, if you do all those things, stud book, genetic testing, the
Right?
minimum, that's the floor. Because
Yep.
you got to remember when the BLM went to Gus Cothran, they had an agenda. They went to
Oh.
Gus and they said, what is the absolute? Because they wanted to maximize the public land use for things not for horses. They didn't want
Oh.
to use they didn't care about the 71 Act by Nixon. They said, Gus,
Okay.
what is the absolute minimum number of horses we got to keep out here to comply with the 71 Act?
Right?
That was the mandate for the study.
Huh.
So they said, "Here's the money. Go tell us what the floor is." But Gus was thinking, I'm a scientist. I don't want to ruin my reputation." So he
Oh.
put in those hallmarks.
Okay.
150 to 200 horses in a intimate herd. You
Right?
got to maintain a stud book. You got to do genetic testing every year, and
Right?
then you only have 1%, which is not good. You still have genetic dilution, 1% every year. And
Mm.
that's what it says right in the handbook he wrote. Now, they're not
Wow.
doing any of those things. They're just out there wholesale sterilization, roundups, no genetic testing done
Wow.
whatsoever. And the horses are still running around that haven't been rounded up yet. They're sterilizing those,
Oh,
which get rounded up anyway.
wow.
Sterilization does not stop a roundup, by the way.
Mm.
Why do they do roundups, Michael? I mean, this is a question people need to ask themselves. Why are
Yep.
they rounding up the horses? Well, number one, the primary reason is they're competing for water and grazing with the livestock industry. It's another
Oh,
herbivore.
okay.
The American wild horses are just treasured wildlife.
Mm.
They're not a commercial herbivore. Nobody's,
Mm.
you can't sell them or eat them or butcher them in America. That's illegal.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
And also, it's biblically incorrect. In Leviticus, it says you can't eat a horse.
Oh,
People who
okay.
claim they're Christians better go read their Bibles.
Yeah, right. Good idea.
But
Good
it's
idea.
very clear in Leviticus. You can eat fish
Huh.
with scales. You can eat the animals with cloven hooves that chew a cud. Does a
Right?
horse have a cloven hoof and chew a cud? We just talked
Oh,
about that. No,
Okay.
it's a single-toed horse. Cows and sheep have two toes. They have a bifurcated hoof, and
Right.
they chew a cud. Horses don't do that. Leviticus says you don't eat a horse. God protected them.
Mm. Mm.
So, but anyway, they're basically rounding them up because they're competing for water and grass, okay,
Right.
with the livestock industry. And the livestock industry says they got to go. We want all the grass and water
Oh,
for our cattle and sheep.
right.
So so they're in the way of that industry.
Hmm.
So the question is this. I actually compete with some wild horse nonprofits that are selling the public that on this false notion. They say if we sterilize them, these are women in these groups like American Wild Horse Campaign. They run
Right.
around and have these high-powered gas-operated rifles that shoot a syringe
Wow.
filled with PZP,
Mm.
which sterilizes the horse. Okay.
Wow.
And they claim, and they get money from the BLM, by the way, they're contractors. They claim that they're saving wild horses, but
Wow.
they're harassing them and they're shooting them with a high-powered gas-operated rifle that would kill me or you. If we get hit in the chest or the head, that would kill us.
Wow.
That's how
Oh.
powerful these rifles. The
Mm.
syringes they're shooting are heavy. They're heavier than the biggest bullet from a hunting rifle.
Oh, wow.
So, and they have to go 80 yards. So you do the physics there, the flat trajectory required. You need a lot of velocity for that. So the E equals
Right.
MC squared on impact, right?
Right.
So, so they're sterilizing these horses, and they're saying that sterilizing horses stops roundups. That's what
Mm.
these fake nonprofits are selling the good-hearted American people. That
But
is
they're
not true.
sterilizing the. Wait, how can they be so-called saving wild horses but sterilizing them?
They're not. It's a misnomer. It's a lie.
Oh, wow.
Because let's look at it.
That's
Does
messed
a
up.
Let's break it down so everybody can understand this.
Yeah.
Does a sterilized horse
Right.
eat and drink as much as a non-sterilized horse?
I would think not. Or do they?
Well, of course they eat the same amount.
Oh, I
I
thought
mean,
maybe because if they're pregnant, they need more food, like a, like a.
no, 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 no.
No. Okay.
Okay, the livestock industry doesn't want them eating anything or drinking anything. They want it all for cows and sheep.
Hmm.
That's the emphasis on
Oh, okay.
management.
Okay. Okay.
So if you have a critter, they would kill all the deer and elk if they could get away with it.
Right.
But they would upset the hunting industry, which has a lot of money.
Hmm.
They'd
Okay.
kill all those animals too because they compete with the livestock. In fact, they were trying to get rid of
Wow.
the elk in Point Reyes, in the Point Reyes Reserve,
Right.
California. They wanted all the livestock industry wanted the elk gone.
Oh,
They said, here's the point. It's very simple.
yep.
A sterilized horse eats and drinks as much as a regular horse, period.
Right. Okay.
So have you solved the grazing conflict by sterilizing?
No, not at
And the
all.
answer is no. It's
Right.
it's clear. It is no. You haven't changed a damn thing out there. Nothing.
Hmm.
But people who sell that BS are
Hmm.
getting millions of dollars from the
Hmm.
government to run around and sterilize horses
Hmm.
because that helps the BLM eradicate them. If you have sterilized,
Oh,
you've ended the progeny. There's no life cycle anymore. Them horses that are sterilized are the walking dead. They
so
have
they're
no baby.
outsourcing. Wow.
Of course, yeah, they're with our
Wow.
money.
Wow.
So it's slow death. That's all
Hmm.
that is. It's genetic decline leading to extinction.
Hmm.
So the thing is there's a lot of good news here. Okay, it's not
Okay.
all grim and dire
Okay.
because this is all really bad stuff.
This is
If
depressing.
we lose
The
if
poor
we lose our
horses.
wild horses, we're going to be in trouble. We're
Right.
going to be like the Chinese. To give you an example,
Yep.
they the birds in China were eating all their grain,
Oh.
in the grain fields. So what did they do? They they killed all the birds so that the
Oh.
grain crops would be more productive in China.
Wow. Wow.
Well, then what happened? Oh, they upset Mother Nature's balance, so they had a bloom of insects that were eating everything in sight because they didn't have the birds to eat the insects.
Oh.
So what did they do then? Oh,
Wow.
they sprayed everything with insecticide.
Oh no.
Oops, another train wreck. They killed all the pollinators.
Oh,
So now you got Chinese people climbing on ladders with Q-tips, pollinating the fruit trees because they lost all their bees.
oh,
I mean, see, this is the kind of train
wow.
wreck that
Wow.
humans engage in.
Oh,
And we're doing that right here in America. We're supposed to be the most advanced country, right?
right, right, right.
The Bureau of Land Management has some of the dumbest people I've ever run into,
Mm,
or they're the most corrupt people and criminally minded in
right.
America.
And probably both, depending on what level of
Yeah,
BLM you're
yeah,
talking
it's a
about.
variance.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to paint with a really big brush. I know there are people working there that have good hearts and are good people,
Yeah,
but and
yeah,
they absolutely need a job to pay their mortgage.
for sure.
But here's the thing. I tell those people, I know it's hard. I grew up as a rancher. I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
The thing is this, um, you could be like those guys in Vietnam at My Lai that didn't shoot when they were ordered to shoot that village and kill those women and children.
Mm,
They didn't follow that order,
mm,
and it cost them dearly. They knew they were going to be court-martialed for failing to follow orders. They didn't do it, and they
mm.
suffered for it initially. But in the long run, all the
Wow.
guys that wiped out that village and killed men and little women and children went to
Right?
federal prison. The people that refused the order did not go to prison.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
they said, no, that's wrong.
Yep.
So at some point, you've got to decide where's your moral fiber?
Yeah.
Are you gonna go along with something? Are you going to participate with something that's wrong just
Right.
for the money?
Right. Right.
Because
Right.
that's a slippery slope. If you're doing wrong for money, I
Yep.
mean, where's the end of that? I mean, do we all become hired assassins for the
Yeah.
mafia? I
So,
mean,
Bill,
for money?
you were a merchant marine officer. Is there something in military code? I heard there was. I'm not super familiar. That says you're kind of morally obligated to disobey an order, which you know is morally wrong. Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, yeah. You do not have to follow an order that you know is wrong. That would, basically you're carrying out the will of the American people as a sworn officer or a
Right.
soldier. You're carrying out under the U.S. Constitution.
Hmm.
And, so if you get orders that are not proper or incorrect, you
Right.
actually have a duty not to follow those orders and to bring
Hmm.
that problem to the upper command. Now, you may
Okay.
face a court martial initially,
Yep.
where the court will evaluate your decision to not follow orders, and
Hmm.
you can be exonerated, but you would be initially court-martialed for not following orders.
Hmm.
But
Right.
in a court of law, even a military court of law, they're going to look at the facts. And if you get an illegal order,
Right.
okay, and that's why the government has black ops. So you got to
Hmm.
have people that aren't bound by, the U.S. Constitution.
Oh, I see.
And, black ops is, where things happen that shouldn't happen.
Right.
And and that's a whole different rabbit hole
No,
I
of
don't want to go
course.
down.
So,
But the bottom line is yeah, the thing is that what's happening with the American wild horses
yeah,
it's an American tragedy
totally.
right now. It needs to
Absolutely.
be stopped. And
Yes.
we've pioneered a solution that works for everybody. See, corporate America, what a lot of people don't understand, this isn't a political issue.
Right.
It's not about Democrats versus Republicans or
Right.
these
Right.
guys or those. It's corporate America runs America. They have
Hmm.
trillions of dollars in annual revenue, way more than the whole US budget.
Yes.
Corporate America runs the whole show.
Right.
They fund both sides of the aisle. When it comes
Hmm.
time to get reelection, corporations fund, they don't care what letters behind your name, they give you money, they fund you.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
the reason they do that, and I know this because when I was an internet CEO, and I invented online greeting cards, and we had big investors,
Hmm.
Goldman Sachs, Bear Stearns, all these
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
It was during an election year in the late 90s, and I was talking to these guys, and I was just a hayseed with a good idea. I had a lot of inventions that cooked up in my crazy mind, and
Right.
in these greeting cards, online greeting cards, I thought was really going to be good, and they thought it would
Yeah.
be good. They were out there going to give me money. And
Yep.
so we're sitting in lunch, and I don't know what to talk to these guys about except politics. It's a real easy, everybody knows about politics, right?
Yes.
So I was asking them, so who do you want to win at the elections? And they said, we don't care. And the guy told
Wow.
me that is wearing
Wow.
$100,000 worth of stuff. He's got an
Wow.
Armani suit. He's got a $50,000 Rolex watch on his wrist.
Wow.
He flew in on his own corporate personal jet.
Mm,
I mean, these guys, they sent a whole team out to my internet company. There's like 6 people from New York to figure out if they're going to
mm.
give me money.
Wow.
And so he said, we don't care. He says, we don't get, and his exact words was, I don't give a shit who wins. And I go,
Huh.
really? Why not? He says, because we fund both sides of the aisle. He said, we
Wow.
win no matter who loses. That's how we roll.
Wow. Wow.
They run the whole
Wow.
show. And see,
Amazing.
Americans, the average
Yeah.
American doesn't understand this.
Mm.
Nero said a millennia ago, Nero, the emperor of Rome,
Yes. Yes.
had a saying. He said, he who has the gold makes the rules.
Mm.
Nobody else makes the rules.
Right.
He who has
Right.
the gold makes the
Right.
rules. And so
Mm.
the bottom line is corporate America makes the rules and they
Yep.
run this whole country top to bottom.
Right.
The BLM and the US Forest Service guys, they're just soldiers on a battlefield.
Mm.
And so all the senators and congressmen and they get their campaign donations, get phone calls from the corporate America, and they say, look, we need more lithium, we need more gas, we need more
Mm.
oil. I'm the president of ARCO, I need this, or whoever's talking to them, they tell them what they want and what's going to happen, and they're going to
Mm.
do it. If they don't, come next season, they don't get any money.
Mm.
There's one rule: don't ever bite the hand that feeds you when you're in politics, or
Right.
you'll
So
suddenly not
nobody's
be funded.
right. So nobody's calling them up and say, "Hey, I need you to save the horses."
Not really, because they're in the way. And
Right.
why are they in the way?
Right.
And we need to ask that question right now. Okay, the biggest problem is they don't have it until we came along. My nonprofit's only 3 years old. Until
Wow.
we came along, they didn't know there was actually a good solution, because nobody was out
Oh.
doing any real research. Everybody was just making money on the plight of the horses. All these
Mm.
other nonprofits, these
Mm.
so-called wild horse nonprofits, they figured out how to make money on the plight of the horse instead of
Mm.
solving the problem. See, I
Mm.
come from a world of inventors. My dad was an
Right.
inventor, an engineer. I've always been an inventor. I've been an entrepreneur. I've run 12 different companies as a CEO,
Mm.
solving different problems. Sometimes
Right.
there were, how do we provide a better product or service? That's where my
Right.
head's always been.
Yep.
And so they didn't know up until we arrived on the scene recently that there's a solution. So what were they doing? They're saying, okay, we got a big problem. We need more grazing, we need more mining, more oil, more all this stuff. Horses are in the way. They know they're a native species. They know it.
Mm.
They
Mm.
know that they survived the ice age.
Right.
They know it. They also know they're Spanish reintroduced horses. It's not one or the other. It was both things. The Spanish brought
Right.
horses, yes, but there were already horses here.
Right.
They got seen. We know about it. The explorers
Right.
saw them. So it's both. But especially these wild horses that survived the ice age are precious. They're more valuable than rubies, diamonds, and emeralds.
Yes.
And so, and they're native. They're absolutely more native than any other species out there. They've been here
Right.
longer than bison and deer and elk. But the problem for the corporate America is when a native species drops below 100,000 on the landscape, what
Right.
does that do? It
Mm.
triggers the Endangered Species Act.
Mm.
Oops. If you have an endangered species, and they're already they should be listed right now. American wild horses should be red listed on the
Yeah.
endangered species right now because they are under 100,000
Oh.
wild and free. That is a
Mm.
big problem for corporate America because if you're trying to monetize public land that has an endangered species on it, the
Right.
hurdles are so high. It basically it hammers your bottom line. Your profitability drops
So that's
in
why they
half or
have to
more.
that's why they have to pretend that it's not a native species.
Right, exactly
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
that lets them massacre them and eradicate them.
Wow.
And so we came forward now, and I've been talking to Secretary Robert Kennedy at Health and Human Services, and we're talking about wildfire smoke now. I
Yeah.
said, look, I said we don't need to kill these horses. Let's just move them
Right.
to where they provide a benefit to the public. And
Right.
so we had people sending letters, and he finally responded
Oh.
and sent a letter over to Doug Burgum at the Department of Interior, he's
Right.
Doug Burgum, secretary, saying, look, we don't need to massacre them anymore. Let's just relocate them.
Right.
into the deep wilderness where you're not going to do gas, mineral, oil extraction or grazing.
Right.
See, in the deep wilderness, there's still lots of big predators. You put cows and sheep out there, they're dead. They
Mm.
they, they will be eaten quickly.
Mm.
So they can't put them out there. Plus, there's no access. The
Right.
logistical cost. I was a rancher. You can't, the people that make money ranching are vertically integrated. What that means is they grow their own forage. They put the
Right.
cows and sheep in one place. They keep them there. They don't want to walking around burning calories
Right.
because you got to replace those calories with food.
Right.
So you put your
Right.
animals in a feedlot and you grow the plant materials and you feed them. So you're vertically integrated. You're an
Huh.
agricultural farmer and you're also a
Right.
livestock producer. Those
Mm.
guys make all the money in
Mm.
livestock production. Open
Mm.
range grazing is very it's not very profitable anymore. And
Right.
plus your animals are out there getting eaten, even though the USDA hunters are killing every apex predator in sight, some
Mm.
still get eaten.
So
So, and
what
that's
was the
you need.
risk? I mean, so you contacted Secretary Kennedy, and what was the response to that outreach?
He sent a letter over to an email letter to Doug Burgum's team saying, "Hey, you need to look at this program that Simpson has."
Oh, well, that's good because he's a very much an outdoorsman.
Well, we'll see what happens. He's also a rancher from North Dakota.
Oh, I meant Kennedy is
Oh yeah, Kennedy, yeah. Yeah,
very
but see,
much
he
a.
doesn't have control. He has
Oh,
control from the side of the wildfire smoke killing all these people now. So we know during the fire up here where I am, our herd of 200 horses grazed in these big fire breaks, and they managed the landscape at a low fuel level like it was before we had the collapse of our herbivory. The reason
right.
what people don't understand in America today is the reason we have these catastrophic fires is because the herbivory has collapsed.
Mm.
Okay. And what I'm talking about is the number of deer, elk, and other critters that eat grass and brush that are on the landscape have declined seriously from
Mm.
a combination of things. Okay. So you have hunting. Every year, Elmer Fudd's out there everywhere with a rifle shooting stuff. You
Mm.
have poaching, people out there with a rifle shooting things when they're not supposed to, it's illegal. You have
Mm.
vehicular accidents. You have deer, elk being hammered on the highways by vehicles every
Mm.
day, all day long,
Mm.
and then you have disease that are killing deer and elk and all that. So the
Mm.
aggregate of all these things happening has really brought down our population. In California, over the last 20 years, we've dropped about 1.5 million deer, and
Wow.
that's important because those deer were ubiquitously grazing off about 2 million tons of annual grass and brush. So they're
Oh,
lawn mowing.
wow. That's a
So
lot.
if you don't, if the understory, the grass and brush in a forest, if you don't manage that and keep it mowed down, what happens is when you have a fire, now, if you have enough deer and elk in a forest, they'll chew that down because that's their food source. And so
Mm.
when there's a fire, there's less fuel. We know
Mm.
from combustion chemistry, when you
Right.
have less fuel, you have exothermic reaction. In other words, you have less energy going into the environment from the fire. Heat.
Mm.
Heat is energy, right? Fires
Mm.
project heat. That ignites the thing next to it. So
Mm.
when you mow the fuel down, if you have an herbivory, when you have a
Right.
fire, it burns a little slow. So the fire evolved conifers that we have out here, and we
Right.
have forests full of these fire evolved conifers, the
Right.
bark is designed to withstand normal wildfire. Okay.
Hmm.
So there's been fires here for millions of years. This is not a new thing, right?
Wow. Right.
Wildfires have been here for a very long time.
Hmm.
Lightning's not new. Okay. Lightning is not new.
Lightning's not new.
So the
Yes.
bottom line is when you have a fire in a landscape where you have an adequate herbivory, it burns low and slow. Even with a wind, it doesn't matter because when
Oh.
you eliminate fuel, it's just like in your car. What happens when you push the gas pedal down?
Yep.
You're
You're good.
introducing more fuel,
That's
right, to
right.
the engine.
That's
You
right.
get more heat, you get more combustion, you get more horsepower.
Okay.
That's based on an exothermic reaction with the fuel, the oxidation combustion. So
Right.
on the landscape, when you have less fuel because you got deer and elk and wild horses everywhere, like we had
Right.
before the settlers came to the New World, when you had a fire burn low and slow, and it didn't annihilate and incinerate the entire fire evolved forest. It burned right
Uh,
under the base of the trees, right between the trees, didn't kill them. No problem. And it cleansed the
mm,
forest floor. That's normal fire, like people talk about. Now, full
mm,
stop. When Elmer Fudd and all these other things, vehicular accidents, disease, kill off all your lawnmowers, your deer and your elk, the grass gets 2, 3 feet tall. When it burns abnormally hot. It puts phenomenal amounts of BTUs into the landscape, cooks the
mm.
trees, they burst into flames, they catch on
Wow.
fire. The entire fire evolved forest dies and
Mm,
burns to the ground. So the thing is, it's very simple to understand. The climate
right,
change hasn't changed a thing as far as fire.
right,
That's heating the environment, another if we went up 5 degrees centigrade,
right,
the trees aren't going to spontaneously combust. That's not that's not going to happen. What's happened out
right.
there is the deer and elk herds have collapsed
Mm,
in most across most of the United States. California's down 1.5 million, Oregon's down, Washington down, Canada's
mm,
down, Colorado, Utah, Idaho, New Mexico, all down on their deer.
mm, mm,
Those were Mother Nature's lawnmowers to control the understory fuel load.
mm.
So, and people will try to sell you that logging is a solution. Oh, well, we can get out of this fire problem by logging. No, those are people that want to make money logging. That's fine, but don't lie to the public and sell it as a solution that it's not.
Oh,
Because we know from fire forensics and the actuaries in the insurance industry,
right?
66% of all wildfires are fueled by grass and brush, not forest,
Wow.
trees.
Wow.
We know
And
that 95% of all the deaths from fire, not
yeah,
smoke, but fire, are from grass and brush fires, fast
wow.
moving grass and brush fires. We know that grass and brush fires pasteurize the soil up to 10 inches deep,
Mm,
kills all the microbiome in the soil.
mm,
It kills the seed bank and all the critters that make bioavailable plant food.
wow.
When you have a catastrophically hot fire, it pasteurizes the soil. That's a really bad thing
Yeah,
because then
yeah. Yeah, I just want to say I'm sorry. I know your wife was, died of complications from these
you,
unusually hot fires that change the chemical composition of the smoke.
right. Yeah, the pyrochemistry is different because of the new heat load. We're much hotter. So
Mm,
in chemistry, if you put three things in a test tube and you heat it at 1,000 degrees, you get certain resulting compounds. If
right.
we take the same three ingredients and put it in a test tube and you heat it at 1,500 degrees, you get brand new resulting compounds. Well,
Oh,
that's what's happening. We're seeing brand new
wow.
hydrocarbons being produced that are
Wow.
deadly toxins.
Oh, so
So the
sorry.
UCLA study that just came out in 2024 said
Yeah.
that in during their 11-year study, during their 11-year study, 55,000 Californians died prematurely from wildfire smoke.
Oh, so that's insane. So that wouldn't have happened if the fires weren't so hot, if they were
Right.
managed properly.
Exactly.
Mm. And that's where the
Exactly.
horses come in.
Right.
So the
So
horses can, yeah,
I'm gonna take a quick break here because I
sure,
need to
sure,
drink a
please.
little
Yep, yeah, I
and
have a
then
couple
I'll be
announcements.
right
That's
back.
fine.
Yeah,
Yep, no
okay.
problem. So, folks, we're speaking with William Simpson. He is the director of the Wild Horse Fire Brigade, and wanted to make sure y'all knew about his organization, which I'm going to just let you know about here. This is an incredible conversation. I mean, the relationship of the wild horse population to, to everything, to our ecology, to our health in terms of the deadliness of these fires. It's astonishing, absolutely astonishing. That's why I wanted to just honored to have Bill on the show to talk about these things, because even from a straight human health perspective, this is important because I treat patients every week for environmental toxicity, and we're seeing a direct relationship between the mismanagement of the horses and the heat of wildfires and the frequency of wildfires. and the intensity of them and the environmental toxicity from this smoke. So you'll see here, this is his documentary. I'll put it in the chat again for you on our watch page, horseofnature.com. And here's his main page, wildhorsefirebrigade.org. Very important. Also, just wanted to let folks know we're right we're just in the early class. We did our first class of the Headache Advantage. And please join us for the rest of that course. It's going to be 8 classes. We're just in the early part of that course, and I'll be teaching the last class. Dr. Scott Verzal is teaching the first 7 classes. Use your discount code MWM10 for a discount on that course and all of our courses that you'll find on our course page at michaelgaeta.com/course. And also, just a reminder, I'm going to be speaking this weekend at a very prestigious herbal medicine conference. They asked me to teach 3 lectures on herbal medicine, Boswellia serrata, herbs along with chemotherapy and radiation, and also black cumin seed. So it's going to be a great conference with a lot of wonderful presenters. This is the page, and then our listeners get a discount if you want to join us in North Carolina this weekend. It'll be worth the trip if you want to learn from some of the best herbal educators in the world. So please join us for that. All right, so we are back with the incredible and amazing, and just so thankful for him, William Simpson, who is the director of the Wild Horse Fire Brigade. We've talked so far, Bill, about the plight of the wild horses, which is totally tragic and completely unnecessary. And now we're bridging that into the fire brigade part of the conversation, and how wild horses can be used in any area. And certainly, we're had a very dry season here in Colorado. We've got red flag warnings all the time with dryness plus heat and wildfire. I mean, thankfully, we just had 5 inches of snow, which is unusual, but happens in May. But they're trying to figure out how to prevent wildfires and how to make them less deadly and dangerous. And so you have, as you said, the perfect solution that works for everyone. But just tell us a little bit more about that.
Right. So empirical science I like a lot, because when you
Yeah.
see results, I was in 2018, Colorado College came down here to the ranch, was interested in my research, and they did a documentary called Fuel, Fire, and Wild Horses. And
Hmm.
people can actually watch that documentary. There's a web page out there called horseofnature.com.
Oh yeah, we just
Horse
put that
of
up.
Nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people can go there and see that whole documentary. But they came down and we filmed up here on the landscape. We walked around and I talked about what the horses were doing and what we might expect during a fire. And
Hmm.
so, interestingly, 2 months after we filmed that, and
Right.
the predictions that I made about the horses grazing,
Right.
what ended up happening was a wind-blown fire came
Oh.
into the area, a 38,000 acre fire,
Oh.
and there was a wind on it, and it was, incinerating everything in sight.
Hmm.
And so I stayed back with my late wife, Laura, we had a couple of questions, that we didn't have answered. What would these wild horses, our herd of 200 wild horses, what would they do during the fire?
Hmm.
Nobody knew. There's been no study on the
Hmm.
behavioral ecology or behavior of horses during an actual wildfire.
Hmm.
Would they end up being burned and die? What would happen? So um, that was one of our concerns, and especially
Would you
my
like us
late
to
wife.
play
She
the
was,
trailer, Bill? Is that something that you think people would enjoy that?
yeah, you could do that if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought it was compelling. I'm just gonna give it's just a short, it's a minute and a half, and here it is.
This fire broke out yesterday afternoon, the day after Independence Day,
Hmm.
near the town of Hornbrook.
fire went up and it went around, it came across, and then it was coming back down like a big horseshoe.
Wow.
And even our friend said, you better get out of there, you better dip.
When it got to the area where the horses had grazed in these huge fire breaks, it started slowing down. It didn't have the ferocity it had when it had all kinds of fuel.
Oh.
In California, we have probably about 30 million, 20 million acres like this where you can't do livestock production, but it's fire prone. What do you do?
I was very fortunate. A lot of my neighbors in the community were not.
First, she lost her balance. Then she lost the use of her legs. Then she lost the use of her arms and her hands, and then she couldn't talk. Yeah, she said, you got to make sure this doesn't happen to other people.
Wow.
That's hard to discuss.
Wow.
So at that webpage, there's an actual documentary from Colorado College called Field Fire and Wild Horses.
Okay.
And there's also, interestingly, a documentary the insurance industry made, because when they read my research and studied things, their analysts said, "Hey, this is a good idea." So they did their own AM Best, who's been around since 1896.
Oh, yeah.
They do insurance risk analysis, and they do credit
Right.
rating.
Right,
The
right, right.
insurance industry, they actually produced at their own cost their own documentary, 8-minute documentary about it. So
Oh,
that's all there at that same webpage. People can see that.
wow.
But anyway, so here comes the fire, and we stayed back. We didn't evacuate. Fish and Game came up, and because we're in the wilderness, they said, "You got to go. There's a fire going to come this way." And we said, "No, we're not leaving." You know, I grew up in these mountains. I logged here. I know how to fight fire.
Right.
And I said, my ranch is protected because the horses grazed all my fuel down. And
Wow.
they go, "Oh, okay." So they let me
Wow.
stay, and so then I went down the road to where there's a place where people would park, they would hike and things, kind of a parking lot, and there was two white trucks there, and they were
Right.
fire commanders, and they were getting
Oh.
ready to set up a fire line up here. And it was a guy from Cal Fire, and there was a guy from National Park Service in Yosemite. And so I walked up behind them and kind of scared them. They said, "Oh, you're not supposed to be here. Well, you're supposed to be evacuated." And I said, "No, I'm not going anywhere. My ranch is right here. I fought fire, grew up here. I'm not going anywhere." And they go, "Oh, you live here, huh?" I go, "Yeah." So they showed me this map, and they said, "Well, show us where we are on this map," because they were
Right.
lost,
Oh.
because they were
Wow.
from Fresno, California. They
Oh.
weren't from up here. They were lost. And I look at the map they had, and they weren't even on the map.
Oh.
And I says, "Well, your map is not going to help you much." I says, "First of all, the map starts in Oregon, and that's 3 miles to the north." I says, "You guys are below the logos on the map at the bottom here. That's where you are, and that's why you're
Wow.
lost."
You're off the map. Wow.
And I said, "The other problem is your map doesn't show the logging roads or the fire breaks that the horses grazed in up here that you're going to need to know about." So they said, "All right, you're going to have to be our local knowledge advisor." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." So I was a volunteer to them, to Cal Fire, and I was on the fire line 9 days. And, I watched what happened. And it was really interesting. I actually looked at the horses. The horses weren't afraid of the fire at all. They just kept
Really?
grazing. For a while, they just look up and they just kept eating. It's clear that they knew what to do and
Wow.
when to do. But
Wow.
when you think about that for a minute, okay,
That's
why weren't
amazing.
they afraid? Well, they're native horses. They were here. Their ancestors were here when Mount Shasta was spewing lava and boulders in the sky.
Wow.
So you remember,
Wow.
you know who Bruce Lipton is, right? In
Yes.
epigenetics.
Yes.
Well, okay, there's some of these things that you learn generationally that get
Yes.
handed down. You know it
Right.
instinctively. These
Hmm.
horses being actual wild horses, they're not
Right.
domestic horses.
Right.
They knew fire. They were well aware of what
Wow.
fire is and how to deal with it. That didn't scare them one bit.
Interesting.
So I got pictures of
Wow.
them grazing right in front of the oncoming fire. They didn't wasn't worried one bit. Now, full
Wow.
stop, a domestic
Oh,
horse that's been 6,000 years of domestication in a barn and a corral,
right,
the fires that they've been exposed to, barn fires, kill
right.
horses. So that
Oh,
is their epigenetic response is they panic. Domestic horses, when they
oh,
get into a fire, panic
oh,
because
that's
they don't.
amazing.
It's epigenetics. Bruce Lipton will tell you all about it.
Huh.
But it really works. It really works.
Wow.
I had a little sheepdog, Australian Shepherd. I got him
Right?
as a puppy. I never trained him. That didn't train him one lick. He knew how to herd right out of the box. Plug and
Wow.
play. It's all
What?
epigenetic. It's all epigenetic traits. So anyway,
Wow.
so I watched the horses grazing. They weren't afraid of the fire. And
Yeah.
then I was on the fire line and I watched when the fire got to the area where we had 5,000 acres of low fuel,
Mm,
horses grazing down to like, 1 inch stubble.
right.
Um, that's where we stopped it. That we set up a fire line there. They have
Wow.
fire in, and that's right where the fire got stopped. And
Wow.
we saved an entire forest, an old
Oh,
growth forest. By the
oh,
way, in the forest, the understory was pretty bad. It
wow.
would have been gone up like a matchstick. So if
Oh,
that fire would have got to that part, it would have been game over. The Cascade Siskiyou National Monument would not be here today
oh,
if it wasn't for the combination of the horses and Cal Fire. That was
wow.
a great synergy of having the low fuel
Wow.
and the firefighters in the area of low fuel because it
Yeah.
made their work effective. So,
Mm,
yeah, because when there's a lot of fuel, the firefighters can't stop it. It goes so
mm.
fast they can't even in their trucks, they have trouble driving and staying in front of the fire. It can
Oh,
move so
okay.
fast with the wind on it, they
Yep.
can't even hardly stay in front of it.
Wow. Wow.
So, but yeah, but the long and the short of it is I got lung damage from the smoke because the
Oh
smoke is
boy.
before it got to the low fuel, the
Mm.
smoke that was being generated was from high heat.
Oh.
And then 2 weeks later, my wife started developing this autoimmune
Oh,
neurological degenerative disease.
so sorry.
And so she went to the best hospital in Portland, OHSU, Oregon Health Science University,
Yep.
and we
Yep.
had $1 million team of people. We had
Oh,
Sean Pittock from Mayo Clinic was a consultant, Dr. Michelle Block from Indiana Medical University,
wow.
a whole team from the people at the neurological clinic at St. Vincent's and at OHSU were all people from Johns Hopkins. I
Mm.
mean, these are top neurologists.
Yep. Yep.
And so what happened is the smoke basically convinced it reprogrammed her antibodies to believe her brain was a pathogen.
Mm.
And so her own antibodies had started attacking her brain.
Oh, wow.
And it can manifest. The smoke can do different things. I talked to Michelle Block about it. She's at
Yep.
Dr. Block is a neurologist at Indiana Medical University. She
Okay.
said the smoke can trigger the macrophages in your body are professionalized. So there's different ones for the brain, the liver, the spleen, the heart, the lungs.
Right.
And and she has some clinical study groups and
Mm.
she's looking at that. Depending on your genetics, the smoke can trigger an autoimmune response in your liver, in your lungs, in your heart, your spleen. So your own antibodies can attack one of your other organs.
Mm.
It's not just your brain. In Laura's case, it was her brain that got attacked.
Oh,
So that was her genetic
oh,
defect.
wow.
So and so for a long time, I was writing articles talking about novel toxins. Because I didn't have a lab, I couldn't analyze the smoke or
Yes.
do
Yes.
I
But you
didn't have a
knew, you
clinic.
just saw it.
There was something I learned in chemistry and when I was at school. I
Yep.
knew the fire was different. I knew the chemistry was different because I was seeing molten aluminum on the ground.
Mm.
And when I was growing up in college, I worked in forestry. I was a logger. And we had
Oh.
little fires. I never saw molten aluminum engine blocks, molten aluminum ladders on the fire landscape.
Oh. Huh.
And here I'm seeing things that I've never seen before because aluminum melts at 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. And
Wow.
I'm going, wow, this is really weird. And I began to think about pyrochemistry.
Right.
And so I started writing about novel toxins. And I did talk to Michelle Block on a couple of times, and she agreed with me. She says your theory is correct. She says
Mm.
the new high heat is creating new toxins, and we don't even know what they are really. Nobody's studying it yet.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
then then in 2024, because Laura passed away in 2019,
Oh
and so
boy.
I was still in the dark. And then in
Yep.
2024, the UCLA study came out saying that, oh, by the way, 5,000 Californians every year die prematurely from wildfire smoke. So she was
Oh.
one of 5,000 people in California died from smoke.
Oh.
She was just one of the 5,000.
Wow.
And of course, that's happening in the whole Western United States.
Hmm.
It's not just California where all these people are dying prematurely.
Right.
And then the economic damage is phenomenal. UCLA said in the 11 years of the study, the 55,000 premature deaths caused $435 billion in economic
Wow.
damage.
It's incredible.
So, so, so that really opened my eyes. I said, wow, so she was one of 5,000, and which
Right.
really, I mean, it was terribly sad, but it's also shocking to me that this wasn't front page news on the LA Times.
Yes,
That
that's right.
that's a phenomenal amount of money.
Hmm.
$435 billion,
Yeah. Yeah.
5,000, and these are men, women, and children. You don't have to be right engulfed in the smoke. You could be 100 miles away because these
Oh.
new
Okay.
these new toxins travel with the air. And
Oh.
so
Okay.
so but the real capper of all of that was just a few months ago.
Right.
In December of 2025, the American Chemical Society
Right.
issued a brand new report. They were looking at wildfire smoke.
Oh.
They've been studying and they found out that, there's 21% of the smoke is a new class of compounds we weren't even looking for. We
Oh
just
wow.
discovered them, and they're a new class of VOCs.
Oh.
So these little organic compounds are
Hmm.
the class of a carcinogen.
Right.
They're deadly toxic. They're genetic modifiers, and
Yes.
they go right through your mask. If you're wearing a mask for PM 2.5, it ain't going to
Right.
help you because that stuff goes right through. Because these things are smaller than nanoparticles,
Wow.
and so it can be in a particular phase or in a gaseous phase.
Hmm.
So protect yourself. You have to wear a carbon mask with
Hmm.
the big carbon charcoal blocks.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
To, that's the only way you can protect yourself. A regular mask for PM 2.5 won't do it. So if
Okay.
you breathe this stuff and you're genetically susceptible, remember we
Right.
talked about the flu pandemic and all,
Yes. Yes.
it's like my wife, you'll get sick or you'll die. And so what I did is I took the UCLA study and I dropped it into a supercomputer and I said, based on what UCLA found, what would it be on the Western United States?
Oh.
And the computer came back and it said it would be about 36,000 people dead prematurely every year in the
Wow.
Western US alone.
That's
And it
huge.
would cost $218 billion a year in damages. And that's
Wow.
not property and casualty, that's health related damages.
Oh, that's incredible. Wow.
And it went on to say, the report from the supercomputer, that for every person that died, there's
Right.
5 to 10 more cases of comorbidities of people who will die outside the study time frame.
Oh. Wow. That's
Think
insane.
about that for a minute. So
That's
we're
massive.
looking at 36,000 times five. We'll
Hmm.
use the low number of comorbidities
That's
times
staggering.
five,
Wow.
150,000, and then $218 billion a year in
Wow.
losses.
Wow.
So
That's
this is
amazing.
a this is this is a level of a national security issue.
It
This is,
is.
I mean,
100%.
this we need. So the good news is hey, I got 70,000 lawnmowers in jail. The BLM has got 70,000 wild horses in a
Yes.
government holding charging us 150 million a year to
Yes.
keep them there. We
Wow.
all we have to do is release them into the deep wilderness and they'll immediately reduce fire. We know from science if you reduce the
Wow.
fuel, you don't have to
Wow.
eliminate the fuel. If you
Wow.
reduce the fuel, you reduce the intensity of the fire, and that
Wow.
changes the pyrochemistry. If
That's
you reduce
incredible.
the heat, it changes. Did everybody die from campfire smoke? How many people are dead from campfire smoke? Zero. Zero. That's how many, because it's not
Right.
hot enough to create
Right.
these new compounds.
Wow. Amazing. So,
So, so we have a solution.
yeah. So talk about it's my turn for a pit stop, and I want to get to the solution and how people can help, how people can, uh, help solve this with this elegant solution, but how folks can contribute. So please go ahead. There it is. Okay. Bill?
Yeah, you want me to come back, or what do you want to
No,
do
no,
here?
keep going. I'll be back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So our solution is simple. Wild Horse Fire Brigade proposes to relocate the horses from government holding. So let's take the 70,000 sterilized horses out of the government holding camp and move them into the appropriate wilderness areas where a lot of these wildfires in the West Coast come roaring out of. You know, they're in the deep wilderness. We have a lightning strike. The fire may burn to be 10, 20 acres before they actually try to do anything about it. But if a wind comes up in the meantime, then it blows up into 10, 20, 50,000 acres overnight. And by having a reduction of fuel at the onset of the fire will burn low and slow, and we have a lot more time to deploy fire suppression resources on the site. So it gives the firefighters a safer window to deploy in. When you have less fuel, you have less heat, less danger for firefighters. So it's beneficial because these guys are getting paid to risk their lives, and nobody wants to see our firefighters get injured or get dead. So by reducing the fuel load, we don't take away their jobs, but we do make it so that they can successfully fight the fire and not become cooked like those poor guys down in Arizona and Sedona. And the fire, I think it was like 4 years ago. It was back in 2000, I want to say 2014. They had a fire down there by Sedona, and 11 firefighters got killed because the wind shifted on them and the fire moved so fast it just overtook those guys and they got burned alive. If that fuel was managed to a low level, that would have never happened. And so we have a great opportunity here with Wild Horse Fire Brigade to put pressure politically, work with Kennedy and Doug Burgum to say, look, we can take these horses from the government holding, 70,000 of them, and deploy them appropriately. It's not enough to go around everywhere, but we can do that. We can deploy them strategically, like soldiers in the wilderness, to protect the old growth heritage trees, the ancient trees. We have conifers out there that are 5,000 years old. We don't want those burned and lose those genetics. Those trees are rare. And we can protect some of these high value old growth forests by deploying horses on the right side, because we know the climatology is well known. We know where the summer winds come from. We know where the fuel loads are from aerial photography. We can see where the vegetative loads are. So we can put horses as an established herd into those areas to manage the fuel year round. And it grows back every year. They're not going to overgraze it. There's predators. In fact, if we deploy sterilized horses, those herds will drop in size over time. So we'd have to replenish them because they're not breeding. So that's the way we deal with this off-range holding situation. And by doing that, we save 150 million a year in tax dollars. So what do we do with that 150 million a year? A lot. We can do a lot with that. First of all, that 150 million a year we save, we can use $5 million to relocate those horses. So that's a cost negative thing right there. We relocate those horses for free. Okay. And then we've got a lot of, about 145 million left. We can take that money and we can put it to in regenerative farming on the overgrazed public lands. Because right now we have a lot of public lands that need improvement because they've been grazed for decades with no improvement. There's been no agricultural work. That we need more wells, we need more water. That will help not only the deer and the elk, but also the livestock industry, which needs to flourish. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's something like 97% of Americans eat meat. They're not going to stop. I was a vegetarian, by the way, for 47 years.
Wow.
When I went to Oregon State, Laura and I in 1971 became vegetarians, and up until the time she passed away, I was a vegetarian. And so, and when we started, there was 1.5% of Americans were vegetarians. Today, it's 3% over 47 years or 48 years now, whatever.
Wow.
We haven't changed that paradigm by being
Yes.
vegetarians. So,
Yes.
the livestock industry is going to get grazing. Let's make it so the landscape is better for the deer and the elk that have to share the land with, because if we move the horses out of there too,
Right.
then they're still sharing it with the deer and the elk and the other wildlife. So we can make it better for
Oh,
everybody by
huh.
investing that 150 million a year into public land regenerative farming. So we
Yes.
get out there and we dig wells, we provide water, we do the things we do, and then we improve the extraction industry policies. We take that money and we say, look, if we know you're going to get the gas, mineral, and oil, we know you're going to do livestock. Let's take some of this money and apply it toward a more sustainable application of what you want to do. In other words, let's
Yes.
figure out how to make this more user friendly for the land and the wildlife. So let's
Right.
invest. Let's invest that money. And then all them 70,000 horses are in the right appropriate wilderness. So we're not going to step on anybody's toes. We're going to put them where there's no
Right.
livestock, no gas, no mining. And
Right.
then the horses that are still out there on the government land roaming free that are going to be rounded up, they will, just a matter of time, they will be gone, all of them,
Mm. Mm.
because they are in economic battlefields.
Mm.
The lands they are on are already targeted for monetization, gas, mineral oil, livestock.
Mm.
All that land is targeted. They're going to get
Wow.
rounded up. So instead of putting them through the helicopter, the death march and death
Right.
run or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
and branding, and sterilization, what I would want to do is take a small portion of that 150 million and incentivize the local wild horse advocates that know their
Right.
own horse herds
Yep.
to bait trap the horses in as family bands. So we bring them in
Right.
gentle, we bring in the whole family, and then the BLM already has all the trucks and trailers and all that
Huh.
stuff because they're trucking them from where they round them up all the way to Ohio and Nebraska and Indiana
Mm.
and Oklahoma right now to the government holding camps. They already
Mm.
have all that trucking. So we bait
Oh.
them. We do a cooperative effort. We bait them in, treat them humanely. We don't brand them. We don't sterilize. We don't do anything. Those will be breeding herds, and we locate them into the deep wilderness with their co-evolved predators, which
Right.
will control population.
Right.
So the BLM, here's another one of their lies, just so people understand all this. The
Yes.
BLM says the wild horse populations double every 4 years if they don't round them up.
Mm.
Okay, that's not true.
Mm.
That's not true. My herd here, I've been here 12 years studying this herd using the good old method. I live with the horses, I study them. I'm
Mm.
out there with band stallions. I pull ticks off wild mountain stallions. They're
Mm.
my buddies. I've been here 12 years.
Mm.
When I started studying these herds 12 years ago, it's the same population today. According to the BLM, I should have 900 horses. I don't. I still
Wow.
have 200.
Wow.
Why? Because I have lions, bears, wolves, and coyotes, and they all eat
Oh.
the horses.
Wow.
Okay. If the BLM's nonsense was true, when Columbus arrived, there,
Right.
there shouldn't have been just 20 million horses and 50 million bison. If they doubled every year, if they were uncontrolled, it should have been horses shore to shore. The national anthem should be wild horses from shining shore to shining shore. It's nonsense. People need to use common sense. They need to
Wow.
dissect the bologna sandwich. They need to
Mm.
open up that bologna sandwich the BLM is
Yes.
selling.
Yes.
Okay. And so anyway, we could relocate all those horses humanely and very gently, as families.
Yes.
We show
Yes.
our humanity. Let's
Yep.
show a little compassion for the animals we built America with.
Right.
Move them out
Absolutely.
there and let them be wild and free because that's what Nixon wanted. That is the
Right.
emphasis. When you read the preamble to the 1971 Free Roaming Wild Horse and Protection Act, it says, and I'm skipping down, it says, it is the policy of Congress that wild free roaming horses and burros shall be protected from capture, branding, harassment, or death. And
Really?
to accomplish that, they are to be considered in the area where they are found as an
Mm.
integral part of the natural system of public land.
Mm.
So that is command. That is the top level
Mm.
preamble to the whole law. That is the
Wow.
command. So our
Wow.
plan, well, it's called the long name for my plan is called the Natural Wildfire Abatement and Forest Protection Plan.
Right.
Okay, because horses are actually forest animals. People don't even know much
Huh.
about wild horses, but in
Right.
Europe, when they were looking for horses out on the plains, the guys that were digging fossils in the forest says, "Hey, you guys, you want to see horse fossils? There's a whole bunch of them up here in the forest." So they
Huh.
started going up there. It's the same thing where I am. There's horse fossils all over the place up here in the forest.
Wow.
Yeah, they go out into the flatlands, but when what happened is we developed America during the cattle drives. Horses got distributed all over the landscape because
Hmm.
people would round them up. They'd round up the native horses and spread them all over the place.
Hmm.
Um, Ranchers would stockpile them because they would run Texas cattle from Texas all the way up to Oregon, Montana, and Idaho every
Hmm.
year. So
Hmm.
they had big cattle drives, and halfway on the cattle drive was Nevada. So they stockpiled a lot of horses in
Oh.
Nevada. It's not, if you dig down in the ground in Nevada, there's not many horse fossils.
Huh.
The horse fossils are where I am and up north further and in Montana. There's horse fossils all over the place.
Wow.
So anyway, we just relocate these horses, and then by reducing the fuel, we start making a big dent
Yes.
in those big numbers of smoke deaths and smoke economy.
Right.
We can save lives every year. We can save lives. We don't. It doesn't have to be the silver bullet. If
Yes.
relocating these horses saves 5%, okay,
Hmm.
of those deaths, when you're looking at 36,000 people, 5% of those people are going to live. That's a lot of people who
Wow.
get to live.
Wow.
5% of that
Wow.
$218 billion a year is a lot of
Oh,
money. Okay.
amazing.
And then saving our wilderness forests out here is critical. We're running out of forests. These things are burning down like crazy right now. And it's just going to get
Oh.
worse. It's
Hmm.
just going to get worse. So,
Wow.
and here's the other thing we didn't even touch on, Michael.
Yeah.
On the West Coast, people talk about the decline in our fisheries, right?
Okay.
The salmon and steelhead. They say that the rivers, don't have the salmon and steelhead. Well, people aren't studying. They really don't want to know why that is, apparently, because
Wow.
I'm out here watching what happens. These big fires burn the landscape abnormally hot, and we know if you go to, for instance, University of Idaho Soil Science Department,
Hmm.
they've studied these fires. The fires are so hot it pasteurizes soils 10 inches deep.
Hmm.
When you pasteurize the soil, it kills the microbiome. That's all the critters in the soil that make plant food.
Right.
It kills the seed bank. Well, and it kills the roots.
Oh.
So when the fire burns the landscapes out here, the sides of the mountains and the hills here, what happens is it's denuded, the roots are gone, so there's no soil stability.
Oh.
So what happens? Summer fires burn everything to the dirt, soil's pasteurized, and then the winter rain comes. Well, you have catastrophic erosion, and then
Right.
all that mud goes down on the freshly laid eggs from the salmon and steelhead,
Oh, no.
covers them up,
Wow.
they suffocate and
Oh,
die. And then
wow.
there's no cohort of salmon or steelhead that go to the ocean and grow big. You wiped
Hmm.
out you wiped out that whole year's run.
I
And
don't
then
think
everybody
anybody
wonders, oh,
knows that
gee,
though.
well, they see, I grew up with a Klamath Indian was my brother-in-law, and
Wow.
he taught me the old ways. We learned how to hunt, fish, track, all
Wow.
this stuff. We even learned how
Nobody
to
knows
log.
that. That's so incredible.
They don't teach it in college, and that's the problem.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and the thing is if we stop these fires, you put those horses back out there,
Right?
they'll reduce the heat and the soil won't get pasteurized anymore.
Ah,
And you
amazing.
stabilize the soils, and
Hmm.
they'll poop in the areas where they already been a fire. They'll walk
Right?
across those areas and poop out seeds and reintroduce biome into the soil
Wow,
because
that's amazing.
I duplicated here right here at my research
That's amazing.
facility here at the Wild Horse Ranch. I have a greenhouse, and so when we were teaching, I taught wild horse ecology for Cal State for three
Right?
years. Michelle and I taught it, and my
Wow.
partner Michelle. God sent me a new partner, Michelle. She's
Sure.
she's part Cherokee, and so
Wow.
anyway, so we do a lot of work together. For the last 6 years, we've been working hard to increase the study and understanding. So we actually, with the students, would pick up horse dung, put it in sterile germination trays, and
Right?
just water it like rain. And the stuff that grows out of the horse dung is unbelievable. Day
Wow.
one, after you water it, the first thing that starts growing are little microscopic fungi from the mycelium
Wow.
that's in the
Wow.
horse dung. And then after
Wow.
about a week, all kinds of plants and grasses start growing out of it.
Mm,
And it looks like a
that's
chia pet.
incredible.
The little horse balls,
That's
they look
amazing.
like chia pets. I have
That's
pictures of it. You
amazing.
like, wow. So on
Mm,
areas that are fire scarred, these big thousands of acres of fire scarred landscape,
yep.
you've killed the seed bank. There's nothing out there. You put
Wow.
horses out there, they will graze in the areas where there's a lot of seed. They'll walk across these areas and poop out there and reintroduce the microbiome in the seed bank.
Wow.
And so they actually rejuvenate damaged landscapes.
Mm,
In China, they put the ancient horses back out on the deserts. It's in
right.
the news all over the place,
Right.
and it turned these deserts back into vibrant vegetative landscapes.
Really.
Yeah, it's all over the
Wow.
news. China releases wild horses into the landscape. It turns it into a Garden of Eden again. I
Oh,
mean, that's what
amazing.
God intended. These
Yes.
guys, these horses do things that are, it's amazing. And so,
Wow.
are we going to let the BLM exterminate the remaining wild horses? Because domestic horses don't do this
No.
stuff. You can't put
Wow.
domestic horses out into a fire-prone wilderness landscape. They'll all be
Right.
burned alive. They don't know what to do.
Wow. Wow.
Wild horses know what to do. They'll
Mm,
survive it. But you put domestic horses out there, you're just sending them to their death.
wow. That's incredible.
So,
So what?
you
So
know,
Bill, just to I want to close with some hope and also like practical things that our listeners can do to help. They can contribute to Wild Horse Fire Brigade. They have the link for that. Wildhorsefirebrigade.org. What else can people do to help this situation?
well, first of all, we have a lot of social media. We have a Facebook page, Wild Horse Fire Brigade Facebook. We
Yep.
have a YouTube channel with 330 videos that show what we do. We're not
Mm,
like these other fake nonprofits that are
right.
supposedly helping wild horses by sterilizing them. Okay,
Right.
I mean, they really, I'm serious. The American
Mm,
Wild Horse Campaign, they manage a herd that they brag about having only a herd that's supposed to have 900 babies a year. They
right.
brag that they only had 200 babies. So they're
Oh
in
no.
genetic decline because they
Wow.
sterilized them all,
Oh.
and they got paid $11 million from the BLM. Why is the
Mm,
BLM supporting them? I mean, when you look at where the
wow.
funding goes, you figure out what's happening. So we have social media where they can go our YouTube channel, see what we do. We show people what we do out here.
Right. That's
Um,
great.
we have Instagram, we have Facebook. They can go there and support us and share all of that research. We put stuff out there so people can get the picture why this is a good idea. And we
Mm,
have the experience. I've lived with this herd 12 years.
mm.
So when I go out and I look at a wilderness landscape, I look at it
All
with
right.
the eye of a horse. Now I've learned how to look at the world
Oh,
through their eyes. So I
right.
know what areas we can use for rewilding because you just
Oh.
can't put them anywhere. That's the
Oh,
other thing.
okay.
You just can't put wild
Okay.
horses just any old place. Okay.
Right.
You need to
Right.
understand how they think to do it right.
Mm. Wow.
And so we have an opportunity here. We proved it works. We've been proving it for 12 years now.
Yep.
We
Yep.
did it with an actual fire. Can you
Mm.
imagine me and you telling BLM, hey, we want to graze an area and then we want to light a 38,000 acre fire to see what happens?
Wow.
No. Yeah, so they can support us in social media and we need to get the word to Secretary Robert Kennedy. People could write
Mm.
letters. Don't do it on social media. That goes into the round table or the
Mm.
round file.
Yep.
You got to write a letter, put a stamp on it, write him a letter. Dear Secretary Kennedy,
Right.
please help save us from deadly wildfire smoke. Implement Wild Horse Fire Brigade
Mm.
because it's killing our family and friends.
Mm.
Every year in my county right now, I did the math. 300 people will die prematurely. I'm just
Oh,
praying to God, people I know. I mean, I'm sorry for those other
wow.
people, but I'm a little selfish. I don't want my friends dead.
Of course.
It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care how much money you got. Or if that smoke finds you and you're genetically susceptible, you're toast. So
Wow.
that's it. So
Wow.
they can help us by sending letters to Doug Burgum at the Department of Interior.
Yes.
Support Wild Horse Fire Brigade. Let's do this. It benefits every stakeholder. The gas,
Yes.
mineral oil, livestock guys. Everybody's a winner on my
Right.
plan. It's not a winner loser. This is a
Right.
win-win-win. Everybody wins. The
Right.
wildlife people, wilderness people win. How do
Right.
you have a how do you have a wilderness society without wilderness? If all charcoal pine trees,
Mm.
that stuff doesn't grow back right away. Excuse
No.
me, but some of these trees are 5,000 years old.
Mm.
I mean, my grandkids won't see some of these forests even at the end of their lifespan that have been burned.
Wow.
They're gone
Wow.
now. They're gone. We
Now,
we have a chance a small window, because they're wiping them out fast right now. They've been taking 20,000 wild horses off the land for the last 3 years in a row.
Oh,
We're dropping quick.
wow. Wow.
We need people to rise to the occasion. Let's not wait till we're down to 4 eagles again or whatever it was
Right.
before we, oh,
Right.
people need
No,
to pay attention here because they may be the next person in the hospital dying too. They
right.
have everybody listening is probably exposed to smoke. The East Coast
Right.
gets smoke from Canada. Washington, D.C., Florida got smoke from the
Mm,
Canadian fires 2 years ago.
mm,
Same deal. There's toxins in that smoke.
mm.
Government's not talking about it.
Wow. And then,
UCLA study. Yeah.
right. But I just want to mention one more thing. You mentioned something to me in an earlier conversation. This was amazing to me that you said that any locality, any municipality, city, county, state, like any municipality can request wild horses and they have to be delivered or something like that.
Right. Under the if you go to if you Google BLM humane transfer of excess animals, it's actually at their own website. They don't tell you this law exists. They lie right to your face. You can see a
Hmm.
BLM guy and he'll say there's no way we could transfer wild horses to other people onto other landscapes. That's
Mm,
not true.
mm.
That's another lie. These people just lie right to your face. It's right at their own website. If you Google BLM Humane
Yeah, I'm gonna put it
Transfer of
up.
Excess Animals Act, it's right on their website, though they will never tell you this page exists on their website. But
Wow.
what it says is if you're a government authority, so you could be a city, county, municipality, state,
Right?
you could say, Dear BLM, I need 500 wild horses. Now you're going to get sterilized horses out of holding. They're not going to
Sure.
give you genetically intact horses. They're going to give you horses they've already rounded up.
Right.
But the point is they're valuable animals because each horse you deploy will
Right.
give you $72,000 in fuel reduction value. Because
Wow.
I've compared what it costs with controlled burning, mowing, herbicides. I've done all the math on all the other
Mm,
ways to remove vegetative material. A
right?
horse does 5.5 tons a year
Mm,
for the lifespan. They have an average lifespan of 20 years. When you
20
do the
years.
math on
Okay.
what that's worth, comparable metrics, economic metrics, one horse gives you $72,000 in value in
Wow.
managing wild fuel.
Mm,
So you get these horses and then you can deploy them. They're going to be geldings and sterilized mares. You
sure.
can deploy them into an area where you have a fire problem. So if you have
Mm,
a large area, let's say you have county or state land that you've been prescribed burning, and what happens when you light fire on land with prodigious fuel? It doesn't matter if it's a prescribed fire or a natural fire. If it
yes.
burns abnormally hot, you're developing deadly toxins.
Right.
So prescribed fire is a bad prescription right now.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
it's you
Didn't
got to
know
think
that.
about it in terms of chemistry now. A
Wow.
prescribed fire on a landscape with prodigious fuel creates the deadly toxins.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah,
So the horses kind of
so
solve everything.
they do. I mean,
It's
you
amazing.
can't beat millions of years of evolutionary trial and
No, they're
test.
incredible animals. Just
They
sacred,
are.
amazing, incredible animals. They're
They are.
gorgeous.
So if we put them out there, so yeah, so you can get some of those horses, you know. I have a deal with the Nevada ranchers. Elko County has the most wild horses of any county in America. I
Oh,
have a letter from Elko County commissioners supporting my plan 100%. They had a vote with the county commissioners. These
mm,
are ranchers. And they said, Bill, when you're ready, we'll give you 1,000 horses because
mm.
they control feral horses. They control horses that are not BLM managed. So they said,
Wow.
we'll give you 1,000 horses when you're ready. So I'm trying
Wow.
to get everything set up with the U.S.
Yeah.
Forest Service and other people so that we can deploy horses into high fire zones
Mm.
and manage those fuels in areas that are difficult to even get to. I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
where the fires are at, you can't even get out there with a lawnmower or a weed eater or anything else. I
Right,
mean,
right.
there's
But a
millions
horse
of
can,
acres. Yeah,
right. But
the
the horse
horse,
can do it.
they, yeah, they go up and down mountains like we can't even walk on.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow,
they are
amazing.
amazing critters. They're amazing critters. So people can help us by going to our social media, go to our website, look at what we
Yep.
do. We're funded. We don't have any funding from the government. We don't have any state funding or anything. Everything we have that runs, and we have a very thinly funded budget
Yep.
for all the research and everything that we do, comes from kind-hearted people
Oh,
who make
wonderful.
donations so that we can carry on our work here
Yes.
and continue to protect our heritage herd of 200 horses. Because
Yes.
I'm telling you what, Michael, at some point, the horse industry, the domestic horse industry, is going to be coming back here to us and saying, Bill, can we breed some of our mares to your
Oh.
vibrant stallions and get
Oh.
those genetics back into the line?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
This is the
So
future of, wow, this is the
the
future.
future of equines in America.
Yes. Wow. Amazing. Bill, any final thoughts to feel complete for today? This has been amazing.
Well, I just wish we weren't where we are today, but the good news is there's hope if we act now. If we,
Yes.
I mean, there's a point where the point of no return, as they say,
Oh,
and we're approaching
okay.
that very quickly. If people wait, hoping somebody else will do it, it won't
Hmm.
happen.
Hmm.
Everybody needs to step up. I put my life savings into buying up this land and setting up this research facility. I live on
Yeah.
Social Security now. I'm broke.
Wow.
Personally, I'm broke. Our nonprofit has a little bit of money,
Right.
but I spent every dime I have to make this happen for the
Hmm.
horses here. Once I realized how treasured they are.
They are
So
treasured, and thank you for that.
don't, I
And
hope people don't think somebody else will do it. You
right,
got
it's
to
up to
step up.
us. It's up to us.
God gives us this little bit of life, however much we get. We
Yep.
all live and die.
Yep.
What's important is what you do with that time.
That's right. That's right. Amazing. WildHorseFireBrigade.org. Folks, please support this incredible organization that's doing very, I call it sacred work of saving the horses and also saving people's lives from these horrifying illnesses and death caused by these, unnaturally hot fires. So this is critical. So please act now. Go to WildHorseFireBrigade.org. Please write to Secretary Borglum, Secretary Kennedy, and also connect with your local municipality. And you have the link to that humane transfer of excess animals. That can help too in your local area. But please support Wild Horse Fire Brigade. Bill Simpson, thank you. On behalf of humanity as well as the horses, you are a treasure. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. You're amazing.
My privilege, my pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Blessings to you and yours. Wild Horse Fire Brigade.